Chapter 1408. The Might of the Heavenly Technique. Not only must you kill your enemies, but you must also kill your friends and family. Only then can you be a qualified assassin, a perfect assassin. You must be cold, heartless and cruel. Forbidden Spirit let out a strange laugh. His eyes were filled with madness and holiness. This was a crazy assassin. If he wasn't crazy, he wouldn't have turned his soul into a forbidden spirit. He would never be able to reincarnate. Yi Fei suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Lu Rian and Lu Chaoyang's faces turned pale. They had also made up their minds. Lu Rian transmitted her voice to Yi Fei. Yi Fei, if you really can't do it, you should escape by yourself. Don't worry about us. This time, we have implicated you. I will not leave. If I leave, I will take the treasures with me. Yi Fei's expression was filled with determination. His determination shocked Lu Chaoyang. It also made Lu Rian speechless. She was originally touched, but now a strange feeling appeared in her heart. When Forbidden Spirit heard this, he was enraged. As an elder of Black Prison, he had seen countless geniuses trembling in fear and begging for mercy in front of Black Prison. However, he had never seen someone as crazy and greedy as Yi Fei. Not only did he ignore the terror of Black Prison, he even wanted to rob Black Prison. This was the most serious and rude provocation to Black Prison. Kill. Forbidden Spirit was so angry that the wrinkles on his face started to tremble. As he waved his hand, the countless chains that bound the immortal bones suddenly disappeared. Roar. After being released, the immortal bone immediately exploded with power that was 10 times more terrifying than before. Its withered claws clawed forward, creating terrifying cracks in the void. Its body emitted a purple demonic light. The demonic light carried a strong corpse aura. It floated into the air and dyed the air into a poisonous purple mist. Yi Fei immediately held his breath and opened his purple gold Tai Chi. He slashed out a huge Tai Chi sword diagram in front of him, trying to stop the immortal bone from getting closer. In an instant, the purple mist turned into a purple corpse saber, bringing with it a surging corpse aura as it whizzed toward Qin Nan. White Tiger Divine Sword. Yi Fei roared loudly like a furious white tiger. He brandished his claws, continuously clashing with the unmelting corpse blade. This left the restricted spirit greatly shocked. True Martial Sacred Academy still hasn't been wiped out? Great. Back then, I, Black Hell, assassinated Emperor God Jinwu. Now it's your turn. What? Emperor God Jinwu was killed by Black Prison? Yi Fei was shocked. Emperor God Jinwu was a martial god, and Black Prison had assassinated a martial god. Even though he had a firm will, Yi Fei was momentarily stunned. It was also during this moment that the unmetamorphosed purple zombie blade suddenly exploded with corpse chi. 3 consecutive slashes shattered Yi Fei's White Tiger Divine Sword. A withered claw reached out from the corpse aura that filled the air and grabbed at Yi Fei's throat mercilessly. Only then did Yi Fei react. His body shook and the white tiger disappeared. A ferocious vermilion bird rushed out and turned into a huge flaming sword, slashing forward. The restricted spirit shook his head coldly. It's useless. Even if you complete the 4 forms of true martial, you won't be able to defeat the unmetamorphosed skeleton. After all, this was a special bone demon formed by the corpse of a martial emperor. Bam! The unmetamorphosed skeleton raised his purple zombie blade again and slashed 3 consecutive times, shattering the vermilion bird divine sword. The huge force also pushed him back a few steps, leaving a few deep footprints on the ground. Yi Fei, Lu Chaoyang and Lu Rian were so nervous that their palms were covered in cold sweat. They wanted to go forward, but they were too weak. All of you, stand behind me. Yi Fei could not let them go forward. Against the unmetamorphosed skeleton, an absolute power, they would be courting death. Since the 4 forms of true martial won't work, I can only use that move. Yi Fei wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His fighting spirit was boiling. He rushed forward again and threw out a terrifying punch. It's stupid to compete with physical strength. There was a mocking sneer on the forbidden spirit's face. He looked at Yi Fei, and there was a flash of disdain in the undying skeleton's eyes. Then, the unmetamorphosed skeleton dispersed the purple zombie blade. His entire body turned into a purple stream of light and crashed into Yi Fei. It wasn't hard to imagine that in such a physical collision, one side would definitely be smashed into smithereens due to the fact that their physical bodies were no match for the other. At the same time, Yi Fei's sprinting footsteps came to a sudden halt. Then, a roaring sky dragon rushed out from the void behind him. Heavenly Dragon Golden Body, Heavenly Dragon's 8 extremities. Boom! 7 golden dragons clustered around a red blood dragon that seemed to have broken free from hell. The blood dragon spat out blood droplets from its mouth. That was the blood demon domain, a blurry yet complete world. It whistled and smashed the undying bone that was pouncing on it, sending it flying. Kill. At this moment, Yi Fei suddenly took a step forward. Following his will, the 8 extreme heavenly dragons went berserk at this moment, forming 8 destructive light pillars in the shape of dragons that continuously bombarded the unmelted skeleton's body. Continuous explosions came from the unmetamorphosed skeleton's body. The unmetamorphosed skeleton let out a furious roar. A purple zombie blade appeared in its hand. Its withered claws tore through the void, and its bones, which were as tough as emperor weapons, rapidly grew a layer of purple bone armor to protect its body. But it was useless. Under the destructive dragon chi formed by the 8 extreme heavenly dragons, the purple zombie blade instantly crumbled. The unmetamorphosed skeleton's withered claws were also mercilessly swallowed by the light beams. In the end, the 8 light beams turned into 8 destructive beams of light. They whistled and pierced through the unmetamorphosed skeleton's body. The unmetamorphosed skeleton's sturdy body was completely shattered with a bang. On the ground, there was only a pile of purple bone fragments. The spirit restriction was dumbfounded as it stared blankly at the remains of the unmetamorphosed skeleton. Then, its voice trembled with fear. "That's a complete immemorial heavenly art?" "That's right, it's an immemorial heavenly art." Yi Fei didn't plan to hide it. He couldn't hide it anyway. After all, the spirit restriction was too ancient. As an organization that could assassinate a martial god, the Black Prison definitely knew about the immemorial heavenly art. Good. I didn't expect you to have an immemorial heavenly art. No wonder you weren't tempted by the Black Prison. Unfortunately, even if you can kill the unmetamorphosed skeleton, you won't be able to kill me, the spirit restriction. I won't give you a chance to grow. I'll close this space and trap you in the Black Prison until you die. Fear, tremble, from now on, you'll be my prisoners. Chapter 1409. Destroy the Black Dungeon. The forbidden spirit's face was filled with hatred. He wanted Yi Fei to experience the fear of impending doom. He activated the various seals in the Black Dungeon in front of Yi Fei. The illusion in front of the 3 of them changed again. They had already gone from the pitch-black hell to a huge cage. Now, Yi Fei was standing in the middle of the cage. On 3 sides of him were iron walls made of 10,000-year-old cold steel. In front of him was a huge iron window. The iron that was thicker than an elephant's leg formed the strongest cage. It locked them inside like wild beasts. Despair flashed in Ruyan and Chaoyang Lu's eyes. Chaoyang Lu grabbed his hair in frustration and blamed himself. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have entered the Black Dungeon without investigating properly. Not only did I implicate my sister, but I also implicated Brother Yi." "Chaoyang, now is not the time to talk about this. Yi Fei, what should we do?" Ruyan Lu was still relatively calm. She had completely regarded Yi Fei as her pillar of support. "Chaoyang Lu, stand up if you're a man. There are no rewards without risk. What you need to do now is not to blame yourself, but to protect your sister." Yi Fei was helpless. Chaoyang Lu was now just like Xia Jun. They were both inexperienced newbies. They were also weak and could not be counted on. It seems like I can only rely on my own strength to get out. Yi Fei frowned and sized up the cage. Then 8 heavenly dragons appeared behind him. These heavenly dragons were all twisted like 8 iron chains. They were tied together and attacked the iron window in front of them. The cage shook violently. Even the entire black dungeon shook violently. It was clear how terrifying the primordial heaven skill was, but at the same time that Yi Fei attacked, countless runes, arrays, and light walls appeared around the black dungeon. These things were the restrictions of the black prison, and they were also the sturdiest materials that supported the black prison. The spirit restriction was standing outside the iron window with a mocking expression. He coldly shook his head and said, "It's useless. The entire black prison is a solid cage. Unless you have enough strength to instantly destroy all the restrictions, you can only be imprisoned here. Then, you will collapse in despair and finally commit suicide." The words of the forbidden spirit made Rian Lu's face even paler. Zhaoyang Lu, on the other hand, was braver. He remembered Yi Fei's words and stood in front of Rian Lu. "I won't surrender even if I die." Lu Zhaoyang roared. "Don't worry. As long as you don't die, we still have a long way to go. For now, close your eyes. The next scene might be very violent and dangerous," Yi Fei said in a low voice. Rian Lu and Chaoyang Lu were a little confused, but they were smart enough not to ask anything. They immediately closed their eyes and sealed their 5 senses, completely isolating themselves from the outside world. Yi Fei nodded his head and slowly closed his eyes. His consciousness instantly communicated with the undying sword soul in his body. Boom! Suddenly, a destructive aura exploded from Yi Fei's body. The aura was so terrifying that it caused the cage to creak. The spirit restriction looked at the scene in disbelief. Just a destructive aura was enough to break the cage. What kind of power was that? Could it be that this kid is a peerless genius? Oh no, I have to get him into the assassin palace. I have to use the martial emperor's skeleton to suppress him. The spirit restriction reacted quickly. The moment he sensed that something was wrong, he had already controlled the restrictions and forcefully transported Yi Fei and the entire cage to the assassin palace, the strongest place in the black prison. At the same time, Yi Fei suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze was filled with a destructive sword intent. The undying sword soul had completely awakened and formed a dark golden sword shadow. Yi Fei held it tightly in his hand and fiercely waved it in front of the zither. Suddenly, a terrifying destructive sword light appeared in the space of the cage. The sword light shattered the cage in front of him and turned into a sword river with a destructive aura. It surged and roared, destroying the void and everything in its path. The spirit restriction was horrified to see that the assassin palace, the strongest place in the black prison, was cut in half by the sword light. Countless martial emperor skeletons were destroyed by the sword light. The various powerful restrictions, runes, and light walls in the black prison were cut in half like tofu from the middle. In the end, the entire black prison was unable to withstand the destructive sword chi. The void shattered and the space collapsed. The entire black prison became extremely unstable. It was as if it could turn into nothingness at any time due to the collapse of the restrictions. As the spirit restriction, the 72nd generation elder of the black prison suddenly felt a sharp pain in his soul. He opened his eyes wide and stared at Yi Fei in disbelief. "Sword soul, there is actually a sword soul hidden in your body. What kind of sword soul is that? If you want to know, go to hell and ask the king of hell." Yi Fei shook his head coldly. Sweat appeared on his forehead. Even if it was only 100,000th of the sword soul's power, it would be extremely difficult for him to control it at his current level. Fortunately, the black prison did not have the power of a martial emperor. Even the strongest undying skeleton was only equivalent to a quasi-emperor. This made him decide to use the undying sword soul to destroy all the restrictions in the Black Prison. As the restrictions were destroyed, the 72nd generation elder, who was the spirit restriction, was completely destroyed. "Alright, you can open your eyes now." Yi Fei called back the undying sword soul and turned to Lu Zhaoyang and Lu Zhaoyang. His voice directly turned into the sound of a sword and penetrated deep into their minds. Only then did they, who had sealed off their 5 senses, gradually awaken. Lu Zhaoyang opened his eyes and looked at the half-destroyed assassin palace in shock. The restrictions were destroyed and the Black Prison was gradually collapsing. "Brother Yi, what did you do? You even destroyed the assassin palace formed by the martial emperor's skeleton." Lu Zhaoyang looked at the scene in disbelief. If Yi Fei's battle in the Bailey Empire had made him feel how powerful Yi Fei was, then Yi Fei's battle in the Black Prison had made him feel terrified. "The holy son of your holy academy is really strong," Ruyan Lu exclaimed. Then, she glared at Lu Zhaoyang. Only then did Lu Zhaoyang realize that he had asked too much. Moreover, it was Yi Fei's secret. He couldn't help but reveal an apologetic look. "Brother Yi, I'm just too talkative. Please don't mind me. I promise that I won't tell anyone what happened today." "I swear to," Lu Ruyan said hurriedly. She knew that what Yi Fei had just used was a secret weapon. "It's okay. I have already destroyed the spirit restriction of the Black Prison. Go out and wait for me. I will be out in a while." Chapter 14:10. The complete domain without the restriction and spirit restriction. The Abyss Prison was obviously on the verge of collapse. Perhaps in a day or even less time, this space would collapse and turn into nothingness. To find the hidden treasures in such a short period of time, it was impossible for Yi Fei to do it alone. So when he saw that Lu Zhaoyang and his brother had successfully left the Abyss Prison, Yi Fei immediately shouted, "Xiao Qiao, hurry up and come out to work." After all, Xiao Qiao ate and slept every day. It wasn't good to sleep and eat after sleeping. Yi Fei thought that it would be good to find something for Xiao Qiao to do. In the end, after shouting for a long time, he didn't see Xiao Qiao come out. When he entered the beast mark space, he saw that Xiao Qiao was still hiding under the blanket and refused to show his head. He was obviously frightened by Lu Zhaoyang's horror story. Not only did Xiao Qiao not want to see this abyss prison where the skinless ghost might be, he didn't want to come out. Yi Fei was speechless. He could only change his strategy and said, "Xiao Qiao, don't be afraid. I've already killed that skinless ghost. Hurry up and come out. There's a lot of good food here." Hearing that there was good food and that the skinless ghost was killed, Xiao Qiao wasn't afraid anymore. He grabbed onto the dragon turtle's tail and drooled. Xiao Qiao rushed out. As there was no spirit restriction to cover up his spiritual energy, Xiao Qiao's eyes widened the moment he came out. He threw the dragon turtle away and ran towards a certain direction of the assassin palace. What made Yi Fei feel strange was that the dragon turtle, who always liked to take advantage of him, didn't rush over to take advantage of him. Instead, it looked left and right, sniffing around and wandering around like a dog. Yi Fei was very puzzled. He only saw the dragon turtle roar a few times as if it had smelled something. Then, with a black face, it quickly crawled out of the abyss prison. Clearly, the dragon turtle was still holding a grudge against Lu Zhaoyang. The moment it came out, it immediately chased after Lu Zhaoyang to seek revenge. At this moment, Yi Fei had already followed Xiao Qiao into the distance and temporarily ignored the dragon turtle's actions. Soon, Xiao Qiao followed the spirit energy and discovered several huge spirit veins. After discovering that there was indeed something delicious to eat, Xiao Qiao happily pounced on a spirit vein and happily rolled around on it. 1, 2, 3, 10, there are so many spirit veins. Yi Fei's eyes lit up. At the same time, he understood how terrifying an assassin organization Black Jail was. Just these 10 spiritual veins were enough to build a powerful sect, and this was just a beginner-level assassin palace. If the spirit restriction didn't lie, then there's the intermediate sanctuary and advanced sanctuary above the elementary sanctuary. However, why have I never heard of the Black Prison in the Central Plains? Yi Fei was a little puzzled, but he still quickly took out the sage's pagoda and absorbed all the 10 spiritual veins. This took half a day. If not for the fact that the sage's pagoda was also a rare treasure with powerful abilities, Yi Fei could only watch as these spirit veins were destroyed along with the abyss prison. While Yi Fei was absorbing the spirit veins, Xiao Chao didn't stay idle. He continued to search for treasures in this collapsing abyss prison. As long as there was a treasure with spiritual energy, it couldn't escape Xiao Cao's senses. Soon, Xiao Chao discovered many strange blood bottles and blood-red crystals. Xiao Chao curiously picked up a crystal and took a bite. His face immediately turned ugly as he revealed a disgusting expression. He immediately threw away all the crystals and blood bottles. Xiao Chao, don't. Yi Fei's heart ached when he saw this. He quickly ran over to save him. No matter how disgusting these things were, they were still a type of special bloodline. Hearing Yi Fei's cry, Xiao Chao reluctantly put down those things and ran around excitedly in search of delicious food. Yi Fei hurriedly stored the blood potions. The blood potions contained the complete Shadow Dancer bloodline. As for the bloodline crystals, they were all created by Black Prison. Since there was a problem with the bloodline, he decided to destroy them on the spot to prevent them from harming others. Roar! Just as Yi Fei was putting away the potion, Xiao Chao came running back with a group of bone demons. It was obvious that she was scared out of her wit. Yi Fei was also speechless. He had clearly checked that all the bone demons had disappeared with the destruction of the spirit restriction. He didn't know where Xiao Chao found so many bone demons. Xiao Chao still looked aggrieved. He pointed at the bone demons and asked Yi Fei to hurry up and beat up these bad guys who were chasing after her. Yi Fei found it funny, but he couldn't let Xiao Chao be bullied by a group of bone demons. He simply rushed over and smashed all the bone demons into pieces. Xiao Chao, where did you find these bone demons? Why didn't I sense them? Yi Fei was a little puzzled. Xiao Chao raised his head proudly and brought Yi Fei to an inconspicuous corner. There was actually a hidden teleportation entrance there. Even his divine consciousness couldn't detect it. Xiao Chao had accidentally barged in and alerted the bone demons inside. Yi Fei was also a little surprised. As expected of an assassin organization that assassinated the martial god. There's another space in the Black Prison. He was also a bold person. While there was still some time before the sage's tower absorbed the spirit vein, he brought Xiao Chao into this hidden space. There was a world of bones inside. It was filled with all kinds of skeletons. There were martial sages and martial emperors. Yi Fei even saw a few martial emperors' immortal skeletons that were gradually evolving. This made him feel lucky. If the spirit restriction had released this immortal skeleton, even if he had the immemorial heaven technique, it would be difficult for him to kill all of them. It seems that the spirit restriction can only control one immortal skeleton at a time. Otherwise, I would be in danger. Looking at the immortal skeletons that were still emitting powerful auras even though they were chained up, Yi Fei was inwardly shocked. He also extinguished the thought of destroying them. In any case, with the destruction of the Black Prison, these immortal skeletons would forever float in the void. It would be very difficult for them to escape. That's... When he noticed the immortal skeletons, Yi Fei also noticed an altar in the middle of the white bones. This altar was completely made of martial emperor's bones. Even after tens of thousands of years, it still gave Yi Fei a feeling of surging killing intent. The most terrifying thing was that there was a flight of steps on the ground of the altar. The steps were paved with human skin. The human skin emitted an extremely dangerous aura. The aura of a martial emperor. The black prison actually used the human skin of a martial emperor to pave the ground? Yi Fei's heart was filled with shock. Xiao Chao already couldn't bear to watch and ran back into the beast mark space. However, Yi Fei didn't leave. This was because he saw a strange round ball on the altar paved with the human skin of a martial emperor. That round ball emitted the aura of a domain. Chapter 14:11. Leave. A day later, the black dungeon began to crumble after losing the restriction. Yi Fei's mood became heavy. The Black Dungeon was an assassin organization that could use the skin of a martial emperor to pave the ground. He felt a sense of oppression. I hope this is the only Black Dungeon in the Middle Province. Otherwise, I might be in trouble. Yi Fei was a little worried. First, there was the Human Demon Palace. Now, there was the Black Dungeon. He realized that the waters in the Middle Province were not ordinary. Not to mention, there were still martial emperor clans hidden in the starry sky. Who knew how many peerless geniuses might appear in the future? Perhaps this might really be a great era of martial arts. Countless geniuses and forces will form a dazzling martial arts era. Yi Fei recalled what the third dean, Xiangqing, had said to him before he left. Then, he put the complete sphere of light he had obtained from the altar into an empty space belt. He did not rashly absorb it. Obtaining a complete domain was beyond his knowledge. He decided to bring it back to the northern region and study it carefully. Finally, Yi Fei put away the Saint Pagoda. There were 10 spirit veins in it. In addition to the 50 spirit veins from before, Yi Fei now had 60 spirit veins in the Saint Pagoda. This number was almost equivalent to the total number of spirit veins in the Saint Court. Yi Fei felt that he hadn't come here in vain just from the spirit veins that he had harvested, even though Xiao Chao had also discovered many places with spiritual energy. Yi Fei decided to leave the Black Dungeon as soon as possible. Before leaving, he once again slashed the White Tiger Divine Sword and the Vermilion Bird Divine Sword into the void. The White Tiger tore the void apart while the Vermilion Bird burned the earth. The already shaky space was completely destroyed. It collapsed and turned into nothingness, disappearing before his eyes. Yi Fei's figure reappeared in the middle of the abandoned house. However, it had become an ordinary abandoned building. Heavens, where did this big tortoise come from? It's too much of a bully. If I don't kill this tortoise today, I swear I'm not human. Just as he returned to the house, Yi Fei saw a scene that made him speechless. He saw a big black tortoise chasing Lu Xiaoyang all over the place. If Lu Xiaoyang was slightly slower, the big black tortoise would immediately open its mouth to bite him or spit out a small flame. In just half a day, Lu Xiaoyang had been bitten no less than 100 times. Teeth marks on his hands and legs. His clothes were tattered and there were many black holes in them. As Lu Xiaoyang ran. She wanted to help a few times, but she was afraid of angering the big black tortoise and hurting her brother. She could only stand there helplessly and watch Lu Xiaoyang being chased all over the place. When Yi Fei came out, Lu Xiaoyang hurriedly ran over and asked for help. Yi Fei, come over quickly. A monster escaped from the black prison. Cough cough. That's not a monster. That's Big Black. I raised it. Yi Fei looked at Lu Xiaoyang sympathetically. Lu Xiaoyang was heartbroken. He stopped and scolded, What? You raised it? Then why is it still chasing me and biting me? Maybe it doesn't like you. Yi Fei was even more sympathetically. Lu Xiaoyang immediately screamed. But when he stopped, the big black tortoise opened its mouth again and spat a mouthful of flame behind him. Yi Fei could even see the black smoke coming out of Lu Xiaoyang's buttocks. Lu Xiaoyang was so scared that he screamed. He used all his strength to continue running around the house. But the strange thing was that no matter how fast he ran, even if he turned into a shadow, the big black tortoise always had a way to catch up and bite him. Lu Xiaoyang was about to lose all hope. Brother Yi, you have to stop it. Lu Zhaoyang was also blushing. She pleaded for her brother, Yi Fei, what should we do to stop this black tortoise from biting people? Well, you can let Lu Zhaoyang try throwing some spiritual stones. Maybe Big Black will forgive him. Yi Fei obviously grasped the Big Black tortoise's weakness. Hearing that Lu Zhaoyang might have some spiritual stones, the Big Black tortoise bit even harder. Lu Zhaoyang quickly followed Yi Fei's method and threw out a bunch of spiritual stones. But the Big Black tortoise didn't even look at them. It continued to chase after Lu Zhaoyang. Lu Zhaoyang looked at Yi Fei in confusion. Yi Fei explained, "This Big Black tortoise is quite evil. It doesn't care about low-grade spiritual stones. If you do this, with that," Yi Fei waved his hand and threw a bunch of high-grade spiritual stones towards a corner. The Big Black tortoise changed its direction. Before the spiritual stones landed on the ground, it was already squatting there. It opened its mouth wide and swallowed the spiritual stones one by one. It was even wagging its tail. Lu Zhaoyang was in a daze. She didn't see a big black tortoise, but a big black dog squatting in the corner and gnawing on a bone. She rubbed her eyes hard and realized that it wasn't an illusion. Lu Zhaoyang, who had just escaped from death, walked over panting. He was about to collapse from the chase, but he couldn't stop panting. "Yi Fei, let's go quickly. I don't think it's safe here." "Okay, let's talk outside." Yi Fei nodded. This was Black Jail's stronghold after all. It was indeed inappropriate to stay here. So the three of them and the Big Black tortoise quickly left the small town and came to a hidden mountain. Lu Zhaoyang asked nervously, "Yi Fei, do you think Black Jail's people will find us?" Yi Fei shook his head and said, "I'm not sure. But I've never heard of Black Jail in Zhongzhou. I think this organization has either been destroyed after tens of thousands of years, or it's not as strong as it used to be and is gradually dying out. Even so, it's better to be safe than sorry. Brother Yi, if it's possible, we want to join the real Martial Saint Academy. Will the Saint Academy protect us?" Lu Zhaoyang interrupted. Lu Zhaoyang's eyes flashed with anticipation. "Okay, as long as you join the Saint Academy, the Saint Academy will definitely protect you. This is the principle of the real Martial Saint Academy. Similarly, the competition in the Saint Academy is very cruel. You'd better be mentally prepared." Yi Fei didn't refuse, but he couldn't help but remind them. He had seen too many warriors give up martial arts because they couldn't stand the cruel competition in the Saint Academy. Ning Zhongchen was one of them. Lu Zhaoyang pointed at himself with a wry smile and said, "Before we met you, we went through several life and death situations. We're not afraid of death, so why should we be afraid of cruelty? I'm just afraid that the Saint Academy won't accept us." "Don't worry about that. I'm the saint. Lin Tianjiao is also cultivating in the Saint Academy. The Crown Prince of the Yongning Empire is also a disciple of the Saint Academy. You can go to him and ask him to send you to the Saint Academy." Yi Fei thought for a while, took out his identity token and handed it to Lu Zhaoyang. Now that he was going back to the northern region, he didn't need the token. Hearing that Lin Tianjiao was also cultivating in the Saint Academy, Lu Zhaoyang and Lu Rian were obviously relieved. The three of them talked for a while. In the end, Lu Zhaoyang and Lu Rian set off first. They were going to the Yongning Empire. Ning Zhongchen would send people to escort them to the Saint Academy. Chapter 14:12. A handsome young man. It was a long journey from Zhongzhou to the northern region. Titled martial artist Wu Jun would need to fly for a full year, and that was under the assumption that he did not encounter any danger along the way. In the outer sea, danger was everywhere. Yi Fei still remembered the near-death experience when he first went out to sea. But it was different now. He was a half-emperor. Such combat strength was nothing in Zhongzhou, but in the outer sea, he was basically invincible. Along the way, he did not deliberately conceal his aura. The outer sea was different from Zhongzhou. It was a place where the strong preyed on the weak. Not only were there vicious beasts in the sea, but there were also many vicious martial artists who would hide in the sea and kill people for treasures. At times like this, it was necessary to show it. Only then could he avoid being targeted. I'm just going home this time, not to fight. I can't be too low-key in the outer sea. Yi Fei found a flag and hung it on the warship he bought. On the flag were a divine dragon, a white tiger, and a vermilion bird. The image of the black tortoise. This was the true martial flag, the symbol of the true martial sacred academy. There were many cultivators lying in ambush along the way. When they saw this flag, they tactfully distanced themselves from this sea region. No one disturbed them on the way to the northern region. It was a very long journey, so Yi Fei simply let Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle out. When he was free, he let the dragon turtle take Xiao Qiao to play. When he cultivated, he would also bring the dragon turtle and Xiao Qiao into the Saint Tower and use the Spirit River inside to cultivate. After 3 months, Yi Fei finally condensed the Black Tortoise Divine Sword after the White Tiger Divine Sword and the Vermilion Bird Divine Sword. But the Black Tortoise Divine Sword is still a little unstable. It gathers and disperses sometimes. It should have something to do with the true martial four signs being an incomplete Archean celestial art. I still need at least half a year to use it freely. Yi Fei sighed. Only those who truly cultivated it would know how difficult it was to cultivate the Archean celestial art. If not for the blood demon, who had cultivated the heavenly dragon's 8 extremities to the most crucial step, he would not have been able to cultivate it in such a short time. In the following time, Yi Fei left the dragon turtle behind to control the warship. Most of the time, he and Xiao Qiao quietly cultivated in the Saint Tower. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. On this day, a travel-worn old man and a little boy with sparkling eyes walked into the small town where the Black Jail stronghold was located. The little boy held his grandfather's hand and asked innocently, "Grandfather, when we enter the town later, can I kill everyone inside?" "Why did you kill the people inside?" Grandpa asked curiously. "Because I want to become a black prison killer like you. Killers must be cold and heartless. Their hands must be stained with blood. I have killed vicious beasts and magical beasts, but I have never killed a human. I want to kill," the boy said with a face full of desire. The old man smiled. He was very satisfied with the boy's answer. "Don't be anxious. Follow me to the black prison first. Once you pass the test and become an official killer, you can kill whoever you want." "Really? Then I want to kill Di Fan. I heard that he is a natural saint and is known as the white-clothed god of war. We black prison killers either don't kill, or we kill peerless geniuses. And Lu Qing, I heard that she is also a peerless genius. But the one I want to kill the most is a demon called Yi Fei. He has been in the limelight recently. I don't like him." The boy's innocent eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light. Then, the old man and the boy walked into the quiet town. A month later, Yi Fei's battleship entered the Xieshio Sea. This was the territory of Xieshio. It was also the gathering place of countless fallen warriors. This place was filled with the aura of killing at all times. When he sensed that he had entered the territory of the Xieshio Sea, Yi Fei was slightly excited. He kept the dragon turtle and let Xiao Qiao return to the beast mark space. Then, he directly drove to an island in the Xieshio Sea. The island was located at the edge of the Xieshio Sea. It was surrounded by countless dense reefs. When Yi Fei saw those reefs, it was as if he had returned to 10 years ago. At that time, he had met Hu Yanchao here and obtained a large number of divine bones from him. If it had not been for Hu Yanchao, he would not have received news about his sister. Now that 10 years had passed, Hu Yanchao had not returned to the East Continent. Instead, he had taken root in the Xieshio Sea and had been protecting the children rescued by the Star Moon Holy Land. So many years have passed. I wonder how Lao Hu is doing. Has he broken through to the martial saint realm? Yi Fei docked the battleship and released his divine consciousness. Soon, he found a hidden island among the countless reef. This island was where Yi Shenzong was located. Back then, Hu Yanchao had brought a group of children to take root here. He had also taken advantage of the fact that the Xie Xiu Si evil demon ancestor had been killed and the internal strife among the 7 generals to occupy this island. A few years ago, Hu Yanchao had gone to the chaotic ocean and contacted the Divine Fist sect. They had exchanged information. That was how Lu Zhaoyang and his sister had found out about Yi Shenzong's existence and his relationship with Yi Fei. Without alerting anyone, Yi Fei had silently avoided Yi Shenzong's various restrictions and appeared on a spacious training ground. In the middle of the training field there was actually a huge statue. It was a statue of himself. At this moment, there was a group of 17 to 18-year-old boys and girls walking towards the statue. They respectfully bowed to the statue, causing Yi Fei to not know whether to laugh or cry. This must be Lao Hu's doing. Yi Fei shook his head. Back then, he had saved these children. He had never thought that one day he would be worshipped like a god. However, those children all had serious expressions on their faces. There were also children who did not forget to raise their heads and ask Hu Yanchao, who was also standing in the martial arts practice field, "Sect Master, when can we see Uncle Yi?" If you want to see your Uncle Yi, then work hard in your cultivation. When you can break through Wu Jun, you can go to the middle state and participate in the Sky Leaderboard Supreme Battle. Then, you can join the True Martial Sacred Academy. Once you join the Sacred Academy, you can see Uncle Yi. It was obviously not the first time Hu Yanchao had answered this question. His answer was very smooth. However, when he heard them call him Uncle Yi, Yi Fei almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He even subconsciously touched his chin. He clearly did not have a beard. He was clearly a handsome young man. These children had obviously been led astray by Hu Yanchao. Hearing this, they all nodded seriously and said, "I must work hard in my cultivation. We are all good children of Yi Shenzong. When we join the True Martial Sacred Academy, we can see Uncle Yi again." "Sect Master, I have a question. I've already broken through Wu Jun. Why can't I see Uncle Yi?" A small and weak hand suddenly rose up. The voices of the surrounding youths stopped abruptly. They all looked at the little girl in disbelief. Hu Yanchao's serious expression suddenly froze. He said in shock, "Little bean sprout, when did you break through Wu Jun?" "Yesterday." The little girl's voice was timid. Chapter 14-13. Yi Xiaochan Little Bean Sprout? Yi Fei recalled what had happened 10 years ago. At that time, he had just rescued his sister from the Star Moon Holy Land. Unfortunately, there was no Yi Shanshan. There was only a little girl who was much younger than Yi Shanshan. At that time, the little girl was as thin as a match. She had been tortured to the point of death. It was also because he was touched by the little girl that Yi Fei made up his mind to save these children at the cost of his own life. Among them was Little Beansprout. It seems that Little Beansprout is a very powerful genius. Yi Fei looked at the little girl who raised her hand timidly. A touch of surprise flashed through his eyes. Although those children caught by the Star Moon Holy Land had special constitutions and were geniuses among ordinary people, they were still very powerful. However, in less than 10 years, even if one possessed a special constitution, it was still very difficult to make a breakthrough to become a titled martial lord. Especially when Little Beansprout was in the outer sea, where the conditions for cultivation were extremely harsh. There were no spirit veins here and spirit stones were very scarce. Most of the children with special constitutions were in the Martial King realm or even the lower Martial Ancestor realm. However, Little Beansprout reached the first level of the 12th level of the Martial Saint realm and was titled Wu Jun. In addition to talent, hard work, and an unwavering heart of martial arts were more important. Maybe this little girl will also become a powerful expert in the future. The premise is that she can get enough fortuitous encounters. Yi Fei thought secretly. In the martial arts field, Hu Yanchao blushed for the first time in the face of the little girl's timid questioning. He did not know how to explain. The heavens knew that the reason he set the goal of becoming a titled martial lord was to motivate the children. In his estimation, even if the children were all geniuses, they would still need 20 years to make a breakthrough to become a titled martial lord. As a result, Little Bean Sprout actually reached the level of titled Wu Jun in 10 years. Hu Yanchao suddenly felt like crying. This is what it means to lift a rock only to drop it on your own feet. If I had known, I would have said martial saint. Sect Master, you're lying. Little Bean Sprout was suddenly very angry, tears welling up in her eyes. Hu Yanchao was speechless for a moment. Then, he looked up at the sky and heaved a long sigh. He was thinking about what excuse to find to deal with this. At this moment, Hu Yanchao saw a person slowly walking down from the sky. He was shocked, but when he saw the person's face clearly, Hu Yanchao cried out in surprise, "Yi Fei! Lao Hu, long time no see." Yi Fei landed slowly and greeted her. Seeing how hard-working Little Bean Sprout was, he had no choice but to show up. "Uncle Yi, it's Uncle Yi!" The group of youths cried out loudly. Their eyes flashed with excitement. Their experience in the Star Moon Holy Land was a nightmare that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. As for Yi Fei, who had saved them from that nightmare, even though 10 years had passed, the hearts of these children were still filled with gratitude. "Uncle Yi!" The tears in Little Bean Sprout's eyes disappeared and were replaced by excitement. "Sect Master, you didn't lie to me. After cultivating until Wu Jun, I can really see Uncle Yi. Cultivating without sleep was the right choice." Cultivating without sleep? The surrounding youths were shocked. Yi Fei and Hu Yanchao were also shocked. Although martial artists could recover from fatigue through cultivation, to continuously cultivate day and night for 10 years without sleep, that kind of boredom was enough to cause many strong-willed bloodline martial artists to have a mental breakdown and go crazy. Not only did Little Bean Sprout persevere, she even broke through Wu Jun. Yi Fei couldn't help but be moved by such perseverance and determination. He also forgave Little Bean Sprout for calling him uncle. "Little Bean Sprout, don't work so hard in the future. You're still young and there are still many beautiful things that you have to experience. How can you not sleep? Remember my words, although cultivation is important, rest is also necessary," Yi Fei said earnestly. Little Bean Sprout blinked her eyes playfully, opened her arms and said, "Then Uncle Yi, hug me. I will obediently sleep in the future." "Just a hug, right? No problem." Yi Fei was also infected by Little Bean Sprout's playfulness. He walked over with a smile and skillfully picked up Little Bean Sprout. He even raised her up high. Then Yi Fei became embarrassed. He was so used to carrying Little Chow that he even raised her up high out of habit. But at this moment, Little Bean Sprout was no longer the 7 or 8-year-old girl from 10 years ago. She was now a beautiful 17 or 18-year-old girl. And he was actually carrying a young girl and raising her up high. Black lines appeared on the faces of the youths who saw this scene. Then, someone burst into laughter. Yi Fei and Little Bean Sprout couldn't help but laugh. Then, everyone sat together and talked about their experiences over the past 10 years. At the same time, Yi Fei also thanked Hu Yanchao for taking care of these children over the past 10 years. "Lao Hu, I didn't do much for these children. The one who really gave up everything for them was you. You protected them and nurtured them. I am not their god. You are their god. The one they should be grateful to is you." Hu Yanchao shook his head and sighed. Without yesterday's cause, today's effect wouldn't exist. If you hadn't risked everything to save them, even if it meant risking your life, It would have been meaningless no matter how much I did. It was you who gave them a future, gave them hope, and gave them the courage to live on. Lao Hu, why didn't I realize that you were so philosophical 10 years ago? Yi Fei was a little surprised. Hu Yanchao jokingly scolded, I'm a few decades older than you. Naturally, I see things more deeply than you youngsters. Oh right, how are you doing at the True Martial Sacred Academy? Why isn't Xia Jun back? It's a long story. Yi Fei was also very emotional. Uncle Yi, Sect Master, we have plenty of time. We can talk about it slowly. Let's eat first. At this moment, Little Beansprout led a group of boys and girls over with a lot of food. Yi Fei and Hu Yanchao also hurried over to move the table and chairs. The entire Divine Yi sect became lively. However, he could feel the respect and worship that the children had for him from the bottom of their hearts. Yi Fei felt a little guilty. He felt that he didn't do anything but received such a generous reward. He felt a little guilty. Oh right, doesn't Little Beansprout have a name? Yi Fei suddenly remembered something. All the children had taken turns to introduce themselves to him. Only Little Beansprout still used her childhood nickname. Hu Yanchao pointed at Little Beansprout and said, This child is stubborn. She said that her life was saved by you, so she wants you to give her a name. Now that you're here, why don't you give her a name? Give Little Beansprout a name? Yi Fei was startled for a moment. But when he saw the anticipation in Little Beansprout's eyes, as well as the fact that she had been cultivating day and night just to see him again, Yi Fei sighed. He knew that he couldn't bear to refuse such a pure and kind Little Beansprout. Chapter 14:14. Accepting a disciple, Yi Xiaochan, this is my name? Great, I have a name, I finally have a name. From now on, I am Yi Xiaochan. Little Beansprout jumped up happily. The other youths looked at her enviously, but they didn't have Yi Xiaochan's determination and perseverance to cultivate day and night for 10 years. Even Hu Yanchao couldn't help but sigh with emotion when he learned of Yi Xiaochan's cultivation method. Then he looked at Yi Fei and said, Yi Fei, it's a pity that Xiaochan was left in the outer sea. Although she doesn't have a special bloodline, her hard work and determination are stronger and more resolute than any other genius with a special bloodline. A good seedling like her should be able to go even further on the path of martial arts. If possible, I would like you to accept Xiaochan as your disciple. Accept a disciple? Yi Fei was stunned. Yi Xiaochan was also shocked and returned to her timid self. She waved her hands and said, No, I don't have the qualifications to be Uncle Ye's disciple. I only want to be a servant girl and serve Uncle Yi for the rest of my life. Hearing this, Yi Fei was both touched and amused. A little girl who could cultivate day and night for 10 years, how much perseverance did she have? Not to mention him, even peerless geniuses like Di Fan and Lu Qing couldn't compare to Yi Xiaochan in terms of perseverance. Even if Hu Yanchao didn't say anything, he couldn't let Yi Xiaochan go to waste like this. Cough cough, now that I'm the saint of the true martial sacred courtyard, I should have the qualifications to accept a disciple, right? Yi Fei rubbed his chin and looked like he was thinking. Hu Yanchao reacted quickly and gave Yi Xiaochan a look. The little girl immediately knelt down and said, Disciple Yi Xiaochan greets master. Saying this, she was about to kowtow. Yi Fei raised his hand and helped Yi Xiaochan up. Since you want to take me as your master, then you must remember that my disciple must be indomitable. Even if you are a girl, it's the same. We can die standing, but we can't live kneeling. Yes, disciple will remember, Yi Xiaochan said happily. Yi Fei was very satisfied to have such a resolute disciple as his disciple. However, Yi Fei saw the fervent and hopeful gazes of the other youngsters. So, he thought for a while and said, How about this? I will also give you a chance. Whoever can reach the semi-sage realm within 20 years can also become my disciple. 20 years. This was Yi Fei's minimum requirement. This was also the minimum requirement for geniuses in the Central Plains. In the Central Plains, if a warrior didn't break through to the half-saint realm before the age of 30, it would be very difficult for him to catch up with those geniuses with special bloodlines. Hu Yanchao naturally understood this point. He immediately regained his dignified expression and fiercely ordered, "Did you all hear Uncle Ye's words? Within 20 years, all of you must cultivate diligently and reach the semi-sage realm. Yes, we'll definitely cultivate with all our might and break through to the half-saint realm in 20 years. We'll become Uncle Ye's disciples." The youths all looked very determined. However, Yi Fei knew that if they didn't have enough willpower and perseverance within such a long time, it would be very difficult for them to meet his requirements. After all, the path of a warrior was a bloody one. On this path, there was the blood of enemies, but more of it was one's own blood. "Xiaochan, come with master." Since he had already decided to take Yi Xiaochan as his disciple, Yi Fei naturally had to take out the best things and cultivate this disciple seriously. He called Yi Xiaochan to the cultivation room alone. After thinking for a while, he took out 2 drops of bloodline crystals and said, "Xiaochan, your willpower is unparalleled, but your aptitude still needs to be improved. You don't have the same opportunities as Master to walk the path of despair. If you want to catch up with those bloodline geniuses or even surpass them, the only way is to let you have a special bloodline. Master now has 2 bloodlines. One is the Wind-Frost bloodline, and the other is the Heavenly Spirit bloodline. Which bloodline will you choose?" Yi Xiaochan tilted her head, glanced at the 2 bloodlines and asked, "Master, which bloodline is stronger?" "It's hard to say. Between these 2 bloodlines, the Wind-Frost bloodline is more inclined towards attacking, while the Heavenly Spirit bloodline is more for increasing comprehension," Yi Fei said in a deep voice. He took out Lu Rufeng's and Qin Wuyang's special bloodlines. Fusing with either bloodline was enough to give Yi Xiaochan the potential of a saint. However, in the end, Yi Xiaochan still chose the Wind-Frost bloodline. Xiaochan wants to become a powerful warrior and be like Master, protecting those who need protection. The little girl's eyes were filled with determination. What Yi Fei admired was her determination. After spending 3 days helping Yi Xiaochan successfully fuse with the Wind-Frost bloodline, Yi Fei took out the complete battle demon Dao and handed it to Yi Xiaochan. "This is Master's body tempering technique. Back then, I took the Demon Emperor as my master and learned this technique. Since then, I've rarely met a match for my physical body. Later on, I obtained the complete technique in the land of buried God. Now, Master will teach it to you. As for the true martial 4 forms, I'll teach you Master's White Tiger Divine Sword for now. It won't be too late to learn the rest after you've cultivated it and joined the true martial sacred court." Yi Fei considered that the battle demon Dao had a demonic nature. Back then, the human demon had used this point to cause him to fall into darkness in the land of buried gods. Although Yi Xiaochan's determination was unparalleled, she was still a 17-year-old girl. Her mind wasn't fully mature yet. In order to prevent Yi Xiaochan from falling into the demonic path, she had to cultivate a righteous technique. The true martial 4 forms cultivated the legendary 4 divine beasts. It had a righteous aura that could counteract the demonic nature of the battle demon Dao. However, Yi Fei didn't plan to let Yi Xiaochan walk down the path of despair. After all, this path was too dangerous. Even he couldn't walk it, so naturally, he didn't dare to let his disciple take the risk. Similarly, his Tai Chi sword Dao wasn't complete yet. If it was created, its power wouldn't be as strong as an immemorial heavenly art. Passing it down to his disciple would be embarrassing. Yi Fei decided to wait until it was complete and see how strong it was before deciding whether to pass it down. "All right, Master has given you this much. Go and digest it. Also, call your Uncle Hu in." "Yes, Master." Yi Xiaochan left respectfully and called Hu Yanchao in. Yi Fei didn't say much. He took out a drop of demonic dragon bloodline and handed it over. Lao Hu, you've worked hard taking care of these children for the past 10 years. Take this drop of demonic dragon bloodline and refine it. What? This is a special bloodline? Hu Yanchao was so shocked that he almost fainted. He smiled bitterly. I appreciate your kindness, but I can't accept it. Why? Yi Fei was puzzled. Hu Yanchao pointed at his white hair. I'm too old. I've already passed the golden age of cultivation. Even if I have a special bloodline, it's hard for me to break through. Instead of wasting this precious drop of demonic dragon bloodline, why don't you keep it and give it to your future disciple? Chapter 14-15. Old friends reunited. Sigh, Lao Hu, why do you have to do this? Yi Fei sighed. In a way, Hu Yanchao was a great man. Trying to persuade him now was the same as insulting him and denying everything he had done. All Yi Fei could do was try his best to help Hu Yanchao and fulfill his wish. Lao Hu, don't worry. Since you want to nurture these children into talents, I will do my best to help you. How about this? Yi Fei thought about it carefully. Since Hu Yanchao had lost his martial heart, it would be difficult to increase his strength even if he gave him the demonic dragon bloodline. He might as well take out a spirit vein. With this spirit vein, Hu Yanchao would have hope of breaking through to the martial saint realm in the future. The other children of Divine Yi sect would also be able to use the spirit vein to increase their cultivation speed. Therefore, he took out the sage's pagoda and asked Hu Yanchao to bring him to the most secretive and safest open space in Divine Yi sect. Then, he took out 2 spirit veins. When they saw a complete spirit vein fly out of the pagoda in Yi Fei's hand and turn into a spirit vein dragon before burrowing into the ground, Hu Yanchao was stunned. Yi Shaochan and the group of youths who had rushed over were also dumbfounded. Yi Fei, that is, Lao Hu, this is a spirit vein. I don't have anything to help you with. The only thing I can do is to provide some resources for your cultivation. Yi Fei smiled. This way, he would be able to repay the children he had saved. As for how much they could cultivate with these 2 spirit veins, that would depend on their own luck. As the 2 spirit veins drilled into the ground, the originally desolate island of Yi Shenzong suddenly had a light spiritual aura. Once the 2 spirit veins completely merged with the island, it was believed that this desolate island would immediately become a sacred place for cultivation. Hu Yanchao was so excited that his entire body was trembling. He grabbed Yi Fei's hand tightly and choked out, Yi Fei, I, Hu Yanchao, can't guarantee anything else, but I will do my best to nurture these children. That's your problem. After all, they are your children. Yi Fei smiled. My children? Hu Yanchao was stunned, then he laughed happily and nodded vigorously. That's right, they are my children, the most important children. Hu Yanchao was overjoyed. With these 2 spiritual veins, it wouldn't be long before Divine Yi sect became the strongest force in the heretical cultivators' sea. They would no longer have to worry about the threat of those Xiexios. It's fate that brought us together. Since there's still time, let me preach the Tao to you all. Yi Fei walked up to the sky. He sat down cross-legged on a white cloud and faced the entire Divine Yi sect. Yi Shaochan led a group of young boys and girls and sat on the ground seriously, looking up at the sky. Hu Yanchao became even more excited. After all, Yi Fei was now a half-step emperor and the holy son of the true martial sacred academy. Yi Fei was completely qualified to preach the Tao like a martial emperor. This time, Yi Fei happened to be preaching the Tao of the martial sage. Most of it was his personal experience, but some of it was the summary of his experience in the sacred academy. After organizing it, it formed a complete set of methods to break through to the martial sage realm. Now, he was speaking without holding back. Even so, it took him 3 days to completely understand what the Tao of the martial sage was. As for how to break through to the martial sage realm, that would depend on one's luck. Hu Yanchao was the first to wake up from his cultivation. He looked at Yi Fei, who was walking down from the sky, and sighed. Yi Fei, are you leaving? Aren't you taking Xiaochan with you? It's not time yet. I have too many enemies in the Central Plains. The competition in the Sacred Academy is also very fierce. Xiaochan is still young. She still needs more training. It's better to let her stay here and continue cultivating. When she breaks through to the half-step saint realm, she'll be qualified to enter the Central Plains and look for me, Yi Fei said. Half-step saint? It's fine if you're abnormal, but your requirements for your disciple are also so abnormal. She's only 17 years old. Hu Yanchao said bitterly. In the Central Plains, there are many geniuses who have already reached the half-step saint realm by the age of 17. Compared to them, our starting point is too low. If we want to catch up, we can't slack off for even a moment. Lao Hu, I'm leaving. Let Xiaochan train more. After waving goodbye to Hu Yanchao, Yi Fei instantly left the Yishan zone. He didn't tell Hu Yanchao that he had left Yi Xiaochan here with the intention of training her. The Xieshio Sea was also a very suitable place for low-level warriors to train. Yi Xiaochan would only be able to adapt to the cruel competition in the true martial sacred academy after she had trained in the Xieshio Sea. Today's cruelty is for tomorrow's survival. Yi Fei stood on the deck. Beside him was Xiao Chao, who was chasing the dragon turtle. With his strength as a half-step saint, he was basically invincible in the outer sea. Therefore, he wasn't too worried that Xiao Chao would be discovered. The flag of the Sacred Academy hanging on the warship was enough to make the Xieshio Sea's Xieshio Sea shrink back. After passing through the Xieshio Sea, Yi Fei's warship smoothly entered the chaotic ocean. This was now the territory of the Divine Fist sect. There were also a large number of warriors from the northern region cultivating here. Yi Fei didn't have to worry about Xiao Chao encountering any danger. In the distance, a great battle was happening on the surface of the sea. Several disciples of the Divine Fist sect were encircling a sea beast that was causing trouble in the sea. At this moment, they saw the warship slowly approaching from the distance. The disciples of the Divine Fist sect were stunned. While they were in a daze, the vicious beasts in the sea suddenly attacked one of the disciples. At this moment, a loud shout came from the distance. Then, a huge sword heavily smashed on the head of the vicious beast. Boom! Waves rolled and blood splattered. A majestic and heroic swordsman stood upright on the waves. Then, he noticed the battleship that was slowly approaching and the symbol of the Saint Institute hanging on the battleship. Why is the Sacred Academy's warship in the chaotic ocean? Hero Jing, that seems to be the Sacred Academy's flag. A disciple of the Divine Fist sect realized. That heroic swordsman was Jing Wushou. Hearing their reminder, Jing Wushou's face suddenly showed great surprise. The Sacred Academy of the True Martial Academy? Is Yi Fei back? Senior brother Jing, how have you been? A young man in a black robe appeared on the mast of the warship and bowed to him from afar. It's Yi Fei. It's really Yi Fei. Young Master Yi is back. Young Master Yi? Didn't you hear the young master's letter? Yi Fei is now the sacred son of the Sacred Academy of the True Martial Academy? We should call him Sacred Son Yi. Sacred Son, oh my God! Warriors from the outer sea can enter the Sacred Academy and become the Sacred Son one day? It wasn't that the disciples of the Divine Fist sect looked down on them. It was just that the outer sea's environment was harsh and resources were scarce. A few dozen spiritual stones could trigger a bloody battle. Chapter 14-16. Greeting gifts. After 10 years, Jing Wushou was still the same. He was so generous that Yi Fei could not refuse him. After drinking dozens of jars of spirit wine, Yi Fei's eyes were spinning and he almost collapsed under the table. Jing Wushou's face was also red, but he was still very excited. When he saw that Yi Fei could not take it anymore, he went to get the dragon turtle. Soon, the dragon turtle was also drunk and started to practice drunken boxing while controlling the warship. While the two were drunk, Xiao Chao secretly took a jar of wine and brought it back to the beast mark space to have a taste. The next day, when the warship sailed in the direction of Constellation Island, Yi Fei rubbed his aching head and sobered up a little. Jing Wushou pointed to Constellation Island and said, "Yi Fei, look, this is where the warriors of the northern region gather. Thanks to the care of the Divine Fist sect, we finally have a foothold in the outer sea in the past 10 years. Yes, the resources of the northern region are too poor. If we want to pursue martial arts, we can only go out to sea and go to the Zhongzhou. By the way, did the entire Taishan sacred land move here? What about Luoshi? Is he cultivating here?" Yi Fei asked curiously. Jing Wushou said, "Luoshi is here too. Basically, all the disciples of the northern region who are interested in martial arts are here." As the two spoke, the warship had already entered Constellation Island. This was originally the largest gathering place for independent cultivators, but now there were more warriors of the northern region. They cultivated, lived, and earned spirit stones here. They sent them back to the northern region to help their families and live better lives. The news of Yi Fei's return had also reached Cluster Star Island in advance. He had already seen a large number of warriors from the northern region gathered here in high spirits. The sect master of Divine Fist sect, who was also Xia Jun's father, had also rushed over. Suddenly, a loud eagle cry came from the sky. It was a huge spirit eagle that swooped down from the sky. Luoshi. Yi Fei recognized the spirit eagle at a glance. It was Luoshi's symbiotic spirit beast. 10 years ago, the spirit eagle was destroyed to save Luoshi in the battle with the young master of the Shura clan. 10 years later, it finally awoke and became even more powerful and intelligent. The spirit eagle also recognized Yi Fei. It lowered its head and stretched out its long beak to rub Yi Fei's head. On the eagle's back, the figure of a youth also excitedly jumped down. "Brother Fei, we finally meet again. Stinking brat, you said that you would go out to sea to find me after 2 years. Why haven't I heard from you for so long?" Yi Fei also hugged Luoshi excitedly and gave each other a punch on the chest. Luoshi's body had become even stronger after 10 years. He looked like a human-shaped vicious beast. "Brother Fei, I haven't seen you in 10 years, and your strength has become even more abnormal. I used all my strength, but I still couldn't beat you. By the way, what's your realm?" Luoshi grimaced. "Half-Emperor," Yi Fei said with a smile. "What? Half-Emperor?" Xiafeng was leading a group of elders of the Divine Fist sect over from afar. Hearing this, they were all shocked. Last time, Xia Jun sent back a message saying that Yi Fei had just broken through the 10th level of the Martial Saint realm and became a Holy Son. In just a little more than a year, Yi Fei had become a half-emperor. One should know that even in the chaotic ocean, the strongest person, Jing Wushou, was only at the 3rd level of the earth-penetrating realm. Moreover, Jing Wushou was the only one who had broken through to the earth-penetrating realm. Luoshi wailed, "If I knew this, I would have gone to the central continent directly when I went out to sea. You would only die faster if you did that." Shifeng didn't hold back and said. In 10 years, Shifeng had also reached the level of a half-step almighty. If he took another step forward, he would also become an absolute almighty. Xiafeng was very emotional. He nodded and said, "Although the central continent is good, it's not a place where ordinary martial artists like us can set foot. Unless your strength reaches the earth-penetrating realm, it's better not to set foot in the central continent." Shifeng and Luoshi were silent. They also knew that Xiafeng was telling the truth. Otherwise, they wouldn't have stayed in the outer seas to cultivate for 10 years. Even if they knew how strong the central continent was, It would be useless if they didn't reach the earth-penetrating realm. Hey, you're Chi Chu-Chu's sister-in-law? Yi Fei's gaze suddenly stopped on a young woman who was holding a child. It was Chi Chu-Chu. Her innate tyrant fist was very violent. It was said that Jing Wushou was forcibly taken down on a dark and windy night. Seeing that Yi Fei finally noticed her, Chi Chu-Chu was a little happy. However, she was also a little angry as she stared at him and said, "What, sister-in-law? Little brother, you have bad taste." She deliberately emphasized the word little brother, which made Yi Fei very depressed. He felt that a demoness was a demoness. She was already married, but her lethality was still so great. He could only say with a bitter face, "Sister-in-law is always beautiful and young. By the way, this is..." Yi Fei's gaze fell on the child in Chi Chu-Chu's arms. He vaguely felt that the child's appearance was somewhat similar to Jing Wushou's. Could this be senior brother Jing's child? Yi Fei sighed. He didn't expect that someone in their generation would already be a father. Time really flowed like water. Chi Chu-Chu said happily, "That's right. This is Wushou and my child, Jing Xiaoman. Xiaoman, greet Uncle Yi." "Hello, Uncle." As expected of Jing Wushou's son, his voice was full of energy. Yi Fei was very depressed. He touched his smooth chin again. He was sure that he didn't have a beard. He was clearly a handsome young man. Why did all the children he met always call uncle? Couldn't they call him Big Brother Yi or Little Brother Yi? Seeing Yi Fei's depressed appearance, Chi Chu-Chu giggled again. She winked at Yi Fei and said, "It's fine if Xiaoman doesn't call you uncle, unless you take out a meeting gift that Xiaoman is satisfied with." Chu-Chu, stop fooling around. Jing Wushou couldn't stand it anymore. Yi Fei knew that Chi Chu-Chu was joking. However, after thinking about it, Jing Wushou was his most respected senior brother. Now that his senior brother had a child, how could he be stingy? "How about this? I have a drop of the demonic dragon bloodline here. Take it as a meeting gift for Xiaoman. After fusing with it, he will become a warrior with a special bloodline." Yi Fei took out the drop of the demonic dragon bloodline again. It was originally for Hu Yanchao. Since Hu Yanchao didn't want it, he took it out as a meeting gift. Demonic dragon bloodline. Yi Fei, you actually gave Xiaoman a special bloodline. Chi Chu-Chu suddenly stuttered and couldn't speak. Xia Feng and the other elders of the Divine Fist sect were so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out. A special bloodline, an incomparably noble special bloodline. It was enough to make a martial sage go crazy. Yi Fei actually gave it away without batting an eye? We really can't compare to him. The former crown prince of the Nanman kingdom, Gu Man, was also in the crowd. He also had the ancient Nanman kingdom's barbarian king bloodline. Unfortunately, it was very thin and difficult to awaken. Even so, when Gu Man came to the Outer Sea, he was greatly respected by the warriors there. Everyone knew that once Gu Man awakened his bloodline and became a bloodline warrior, he would soar to the sky and become extremely powerful. Chapter 14-17. Home. Just like that, under the envious gazes of many warriors, Jing Wushou's son successfully integrated the demonic dragon bloodline. This greatly stimulated everyone's martial spirit. After all, many people knew that Yi Fei had a body abandoned by the heavens. This was a useless body that was destined to have no future in martial arts. Even so, Yi Fei still bravely advanced and broke through to the half-emperor realm. His success was a great encouragement to many of the young martial artists present. It seems that we've been living too comfortably for the past 10 years. It's time for us to go out and explore. Jing Wushou sighed. Luo Shi was depressed. So what if we go out? We're just ordinary warriors. Even if we go to Zhongzhou, it'll be difficult for us to gain a foothold. I can help you with this. After all, one was his brother and the other was his respected senior brother. As long as they had a firm martial spirit, Yi Fei would not give up on them. After the gathering, he called the two to a secret room and took out the shadow warrior bloodline he found in the black dungeon. Seeing Yi Fei take out 2 more bloodline crystals, Jing Wushou and Luo, she almost fainted. "Junior brother, where did you get so many special bloodlines?" It should be known that those who had special bloodlines were all geniuses. In order to obtain special bloodlines, even martial saints could fight to the death. However, Yi Fei did not even blink and took them out one after the other. If this spread out, a group of people would definitely faint from fright. Even though Luo Shi and Jing Wushou had strong willpower, they were still frightened at this moment. Yi Fei's expression was serious. "This is the Shadow Warrior bloodline. It's different from the low-level demonic dragon bloodline. If it awakens, there's a certain chance of awakening a high-level bloodline." Luo Shi was puzzled. "Brother Fei, since you have the Shadow Warrior bloodline, why didn't you give it to Xiao Man instead of the low-level bloodline?" "Junior brother Yi, do you have any concerns? There should be a problem with the origin of these bloodlines, right?" Jing Wushou's eyes flashed as he asked in a deep voice. Yi Fei nodded. "I took these bloodlines from an assassin organization called Black Dungeon. Unless it's someone I trust, giving them to others is harming them. Now, have you made up your mind to refine this bloodline?" Seeing his serious expression, Luo Shi and Jing Wushou's expressions also became serious. Then, Jing Wushou was the first to pick up the Shadow Dancer bloodline. "Wealth comes from danger. Master had said that on the path of martial arts, one must press forward courageously. I've been stuck on the martial path for too long. Now that I have a son, I have nothing to worry about. It's time for me to pursue my martial path." Jing Wushou's eyes lit up. Luo Shi picked up another bloodline crystal and said solemnly, "Without strength, I can't even decide my own life and death. I want to become stronger. I want to walk to the peak of martial arts together with Brother Fei. For this goal, it's worth it even if it's a little risk." "Sai, I hope you've made the right choice." Yi Fei sighed. To be honest, he had hesitated for a long time when he took out the Shadow Warrior bloodline. However, this was the only bloodline crystal he had that could awaken a high-level bloodline. Even the demonic dragon bloodline was a level lower. Now, Yi Fei could only hope that the assassin organization, Black Jail, had already perished after tens of thousands of years. "Senior brother Jing, Luo Shi, remember, before you reach the level of a martial emperor, you must not expose the Shadow Dancer bloodline in your body. Wait until I return to Middle Province and investigate the situation of Black Jail. I'll come back to inform you." Yi Fei reminded the two of them solemnly. "Junior brother, don't worry. We won't tell anyone. From today onwards, we'll hide in the outer sea and cultivate. We'll wait for your news." Jing Wushou and Luo Shi's expressions were also very serious. Seeing their serious expressions, Yi Fei smiled and comforted them. "Don't worry. After all, it's not the ancient times. It's very difficult for a martial emperor expert to appear. No matter how strong Black Jail is, without a martial emperor, they won't be a threat to us. Oh right, before I leave, I'll leave 2 spiritual veins on Constellation Island. Consider it a token of my appreciation for the North region." "What? Yi Fei, you still have a complete spiritual vein?" Jing Wushou's expression was unavoidably strange. Luo Shi asked directly, "Brother Fei, did you become a bandit in Middle Province? What kind of person did these two take him for?" Yi Fei could only emphasize again, "I'm a righteous person. These spiritual veins were taken from the Sage Tower by me." After all, the matter of Black Jail was too sensitive. If he knew too much, it would only add unnecessary pressure and burden to Jing Wushou and Luo Shi. Yi Fei could only blame the true martial sacred courtyard for the spiritual veins. Then, he chose a suitable location on Constellation Island and set up 2 spiritual veins. Even so, Yi Fei's actions shocked the group of people. The group of elders from the Divine Fist sect were so envious that their eyes turned red like rabbit. One should know that in the chaotic ocean, even spiritual stones were rare, let alone a complete spiritual vein. However, after Yi Fei said that he would also leave a spiritual vein for the Divine Fist sect, the elders' eyes turned red and they were moved to tears. That brat has followed a good elder brother. The Divine Fist sect's sect master was gratified and secretly admired his own foresight. If he hadn't made Xia Jun acknowledge Yi Fei as his elder brother, the Divine Fist sect wouldn't have the glory it had today. Yi Fei, I don't understand. Spiritual veins are so precious. Why did you give one to the Divine Fist sect? There were also martial artists from the North region who didn't understand. They tactfully advised Yi Fei through Shifeng. Yi Fei just smiled and didn't say anything. If he only left a spiritual vein on Constellation Island, the Divine Fist sect would definitely be jealous and dissatisfied after a long time. After all, the martial artists from the North region were all outsiders to the Divine Fist sect. Therefore, he also left a spiritual vein in the Divine Fist sect. This was to appease them. It was also a balance. Only when a balance was reached could the North region and Outer Sea martial artists not have conflicts of interest. And with his special relationship with Xia Jun, as long as they were around, the Divine Fist sect and the North region would always live in peace. The chaotic ocean would also always maintain a peaceful cultivation environment. At the same time, this was the only contribution Yi Fei could make to the North region. It could also be considered as repaying the North region's kindness in raising him. As for how the North region and the chaotic ocean would evolve in the future, that was no longer his concern. That was a problem for future martial artists to consider. The matter with Divine Sect Yi has been settled. The matter with the chaotic ocean has also been settled. Now, it's time for me to return to the North region and family Yi. Chapter 14:18. Unprecedented splendor. The sea in the northern region was still the same. There was no wind or waves, and it was very calm. The martial god's restriction shrouded the entire northern region. It also prevented non-North region warriors from entering, including those above Wu Jun. Those below Wu Jun would not be able to cause too much of a stir. Of course, this kind of restriction was only targeted at foreign martial artists. As for the martial artists who returned from the northern region, the restriction would not stop or suppress them. Therefore, Yi Fei's current realm was still at the half-emperor realm. With his powerful strength, he could already see land after sailing on the sea for half a month. There were fishermen dragging their fishing nets back from the sea. Many villages by the sea were already covered in thick smoke. A large number of warriors had left the northern region for the outer seas. The originally quiet seaside villages and small towns gradually became lively. Unique inns had already been built at the entrances of many small villages. Signs with the word wine stuck out from the verdant bamboo forests. Groups of warriors who had just returned or were preparing to go out to sea were sitting around tables outside these villages. They were discussing the local customs of the Northern Territory and debating about their martial art. Occasionally, there would be children from the village running out with knives, swords, and harpoons. They stood far away and listened to the discussions of the martial artists. In their minds, they imagined the saber lights and sword shadows of the world of martial artists. Their immature little faces revealed yearning and anticipation. There were also bold children who, with their immature and trembling voices, hugged their wooden sabers and swords and asked for guidance from the martial artists. This caused a lot of good-natured laughter. At this time, there would be big-footed women in the village, waving rolling pins, spatulas, and the like. They would run out angrily and grab all the children and bring them back. It was common for some of the more valiant ones to pull down their pants and start a fight in public. To these ordinary villagers, the world of warriors was too mysterious and too dangerous. It was a world of blood and corpses. They would rather their children live a peaceful life than experience those terrifying flashes of swords and sabers. This naturally caused the cultivators to burst into laughter again. Yi Fei also smiled. The men of the Northern Territory revered courage and bravery. Just a few beatings would not scare away the children's yearning for the world of martial artists. Instead, it would deepen the mystery of the world and attract them to continue exploring. After walking past these noisy and bustling villages, the real 18 kingdoms of the North Sea were right in front of them. Yi Fei had heard that in the 10 years he had been away, the original 18 kingdoms had all disappeared. Now, only one kingdom remained, and that was the North Sea Kingdom. Zhao's royal family became the royal family of North Sea Nation. Zhao Xing also became the emperor again. He was a capable emperor. Without the interference of the Empress Dowager, Zhao Xing governed North Sea Nation to be very stable and prosperous. Praises for the emperor could be heard everywhere. On the main road, one could see many scholars carrying book baskets as they headed to the imperial city for the examination. They were also martial artists, but while they were studying literature, they would also cultivate. However, these scholars cultivated not for the sake of killing, but for the sake of longevity. The longer they lived, the easier it was for them to realize their ambitions and belief. The family Yi did not establish a kingdom. This made Yi Fei very satisfied. There were only 10,000-year-old aristocratic families and no 10,000-year-old emperor. Compared to establishing a kingdom, establishing an aristocratic family was undoubtedly more in line with the current situation of the family Yi. The sword manor was still the same. It was the same as it was before Yi Fei left. The only change was that Yi Fei saw a huge statue in the square of the sword manor. The statue shone with a golden light under the sun. A group of family Ye's children would wake up early every morning to look at the statue and listen to the elders tell the story of the sage king. Yi Fei could only smile bitterly at this. Fortunately, he had seen Yi Shenzong's statue, so he could somewhat accept his own golden statue. Then, he spread out his divine sense and enveloped the entire North Sea Pass and the Sword King Mansion. He saw the flood dragon Blackie playing in the big pond. He also saw many young disciples of the Yi family training hard on the martial arts field. He also saw a study hall. Inside, there were learned scholars hired by the Yi family. They were teaching many young children about poetry and etiquette, advocating respect and courtesy. As his psychic consciousness went deeper, he sensed many powerful people who were cultivating in seclusion. They were all titled battle pet warriors, Wu Jun. He was familiar with many of them, such as Jin Jizi from the Taishan Holy Ground and the Dean of Tianyun Wufu. After a long time, those seniors had also reached the titled Wu Jun's level, which made Yi Fei quite happy. Finally, he began to sense Yi Jian's energy. Soon, in the inner hall of the Sword Manor, he sensed Yi Jian's energy and the energy of many elders of the family Yi. In 10 years, those elders had made great progress. The weaker ones had reached the martial grandmaster realm, and the stronger ones had reached the martial lord realm. There were also many new faces. Some of them were still very young, but they were able to attend important meetings of the family Yi. Undoubtedly, they were the rising talents of the family Yi. At the moment, Yi Jian was gathering the core management of the family Yi to discuss the future development of the family Yi. At this moment, everyone felt dizzy. In the inner hall, there was actually a figure in a black robe, which scared many of the young experts of the Yi clan half to death. Someone had broken into the inner hall of the family Yi without making a sound. That was unbelievable. A young elder unleashed his spiritual ether, trying to take down the intruder on the spot. Yi Jian, who was sitting at the head of the table, waved his hand majestically to stop them. Then, he stood up excitedly. Yi Fei, Uncle Jian isn't dreaming, is he? Uncle Jian, you're not dreaming. I'm back. Thank you for your hard work. Yi Fei saw Yi Jian's white hair. He knew that Yi Jian had sacrificed a lot for the family Yi to achieve what it was today. Yi Fei, he's the Holy King Yi. The Holy King is back. That's great. I can't believe I've met the Holy King of the family Yi. Many young elders of the family Yi hurried to greet him excitedly. Many of the older generation of Yi family elders sighed in their hearts. Soon, Jin Jizi, who was alarmed, rushed in from his seclusion. Boy Yi, you're finally back. At your cultivation, Jin Jizi was now Wu Jun, who had reached the 12th level of the martial saint realm. However, he couldn't sense Yi Fei's current cultivation level. Half-Emperor. Yi Fei said his cultivation level calmly. Boom. His words were like thunder, which shocked Jin Jizi so much that he almost fainted. The elders of the family Yi were so shocked that they opened their mouths wide and couldn't say anything. Only Yi Jian was stunned for a moment. Then, he laughed and scolded in surprise. Good boy, when Shanshan came back, she said you've become a powerful figure. You scared us half to death. It's only been a few years, and you've broken through to the half-emperor level. Gosh, there's a half-emperor in our family Yi. With the news of Yi Fei's return and his breakthrough to the half-emperor level, the whole family Yi, the whole Sword King Mansion, and the North Sea were all shocked. Chapter 14-19. Respect one's teachers. What? Yi Fei has returned to family Yi? When did this happen? Why didn't you say so earlier? In the Beiyang royal palace, Zhu Zhen was holding a morning assembly. When he heard the news, he didn't say anything. He immediately led the 4 heavenly kings and Empress Beigongyu to Beiyang Sea Pass. Your Majesty, the latest news is that Saint King Yi has returned from Zhongzhou. Should we send gifts to congratulate him? In the capital of the Northern Wilderness Kingdom, an official asked the Northern Wilderness King about his attitude. In the end, the Northern Wilderness Overlord did not say anything. He slapped the dragon throne and stood up, saying, Saint King Yi has returned. This is a major event in the northern region. It is not as simple as a gift. Stop all state affairs immediately. I will go and greet him personally. Yi Fei actually managed to come back? Right, what's his cultivation level? Half-Emperor? This is bad. Quickly prepare a generous gift. I'll personally pay my respects. Almost at the same time, the Beichuan king jumped out of his dragon throne in fright. He no longer cared about his dignity as a king. Indeed, these monarchs were too insignificant in front of a half-step emperor. Yi Fei had reached the level where he could cause an earthquake in the entire northern region with a stomp of his feet. Nobody dared to put on airs as a monarch at this time. They all ran as fast as they could to pay a visit to Sword Lord Mansion. As Yi Fei returned and the news of him breaking through to the half-martial emperor realm spread, countless cultivators rushed to the northern sea pass from all directions in order to catch a glimpse of the might of a half-martial emperor. This caused the family Yi to become a holy land for cultivators on a pilgrimage. However, the inside of Sword Master Mansion was very quiet. Compared to the reaction of outsiders, when the people of the family Yi saw Yi Fei take out treasures, piles of spiritual stones, powerful martial techniques, and even quasi-emperor weapons, everyone in the family Yi was shocked and numb. Yi Jian was even more emotional. Back then, Yi Fei had given him a semi-sage golden sword. He had treated it like a family heirloom and was usually reluctant to use it. In the end, when Yi Fei returned, he threw out a large number of semi-sage and saint artifacts. How could these old fellows endure this? The most exciting part was yet to come. When Yi Fei took out many bloodline crystals and told the family Yi elders that if they fused with these bloodlines, they would be able to obtain a special bloodline. Half of the elders were so happy that they fainted on the spot, while the other half were so shocked that they couldn't say a word for a long time. Frenzied Blade Old Man and Jin Jizi, the 2 Wu Jun from the Holy Land, were so envious that their eyes turned red. They muttered to themselves, "If we had known that we could obtain so many treasures in the Central Plains, we would have gone out to explore even if we had to risk our lives." Of course, they were just joking. The more precious the things Yi Fei took out, the more they understood how much danger Yi Fei had experienced. In the end, when Yi Fei took out the Saint's Pagoda and let Frenzied Blade Old Man and the other seniors, as well as Yi Jian and the others, enter to cultivate, the entire family Yi was so shocked that they were completely numb. Even when they saw the spirit river formed by 50 spirit veins in front of them, they couldn't bring up the slightest excitement. 3 months later, the North Sea Pass was completely overcrowded. Powerful warriors from all over the northern region were everywhere. Martial ancestors, martial kings, and titled Wu Jun could be seen everywhere. However, everyone was looking in one direction. In the direction of the Sword Manor, there was a huge Saint's Pagoda that was exuding an astonishing amount of spirit energy. The spirit energy made Zhu Zhen and Beigong Yu very envious. Qin Bing and Beigong Chun, who had also rushed over, also had complicated expressions. They had chosen to stay back because they didn't want to take the risk of going out to sea. At that time, they all thought that their choice was right, especially when they learned that the warriors who went out to sea had suffered heavy casualties. But now they all regretted it in their hearts. If I had known, I would have given up my identity as the king of the Northern Ocean Kingdom. I would have gone out to sea and continued my path of martial arts. Zhu Zhen's words could be said to have spoken the thoughts of many warriors. Many titled Wu Jun, who had rushed over, also looked at the tall Saint's Pagoda and were secretly shocked. This was the power of the Sacred Academy. This was the power of a half-emperor. All glory, splendor, wealth, and monstrous power were pale and powerless in the face of absolute strength. So they came, and they waited. They waited until the Saint's Pagoda lost its last bit of spirit energy. They waited like this for a full 3 months, but no one dared to complain. The 4 kings were all willing to wait outside, waiting for Yi Fei to receive them. They also wanted to take the opportunity to find out the purpose of Yi Fei's return this time. The only exception was the king of the Northern Ocean Kingdom, Zhao Xing. After all, he was Zhao Yu's father. Yi Fei dared not make Zhao Xing wait for him. Therefore, Zhao Xing was the last to arrive, but the first to enter the Sword King residence. Yi Fei hurriedly came out to welcome him and invited him into the Saint's Pagoda. 3 months later, Zhao Xing was the first to walk out of the Saint's Pagoda. Suddenly, a powerful aura emerged from his body. It was the aura of Wu Jun, who had descended to the world. Zhao Xing, that old man, actually broke through to Wu Jun. Chapter 1420. Unity of Knowledge and Action. I understand. Yi Fei nodded. He took out his spirit-devouring sword and pointed at his heart. My hand is a sword, my heart is a sword. My every action is my sword. The sword is in one's heart. His voice was sonorous and flat, yet it actually revealed the clanging sound of a sword that was filled with iron blood and slaughter. Sword Maniac Elder looked at Yi Fei in shock. For the first time, a gratified and satisfied expression appeared on his calm face. The sword is in one's heart. It is rare that you can understand this. Now, stab with your sword. Yes, old Master Jian, be careful. Yi Fei understood that Sword Maniac Elder wanted to test him. He quickly sealed his primordial spirit and did not use any vital energy. He started to stab with his sword. With a thought, his sword stabbed towards Sword Maniac Elder's vital points like a waterfall. Sword Maniac Elder's turbid eyes suddenly became sharp. He pulled out the stone sword on his back and started to stab. This stone sword was ordinary, but it was like a bolt of lightning in the rain. It quickly and accurately pierced through the curtain of swords in the sky. Yi Fei was secretly shocked. The trajectory of the devouring spirit sword suddenly underwent an extremely strange change. It became incomparably slow, like a perfect circle, enclosing the surrounding space inside. Good sword. Sword Maniac Elder gave a rare praise. His sword was even faster. It was still straightforward. When he stretched out his hand, he would stab again. The simple stone sword had a strange light at this moment. It was not the light of martial arts, but the light of the sword path. Sword Maniac Elder's sword was too fast. Ding ding dang dang. It was like a storm that suddenly became a torrential downpour, then thunder and lightning. It was like a landslide. He did not use any vital energy. It was just a simple move, but Yi Fei's expression changed greatly. He had the illusion that there was a mountain in front of him that could not be crossed or blocked. Clang! The spirit-devouring sword and the stone sword collided. Suddenly, a great force flattened the circle that Yi Fei had drawn. Without the perfect circle, the defense of the Taiji sword Dao had an unavoidable loophole. Cold sweat suddenly appeared on Yi Fei's forehead, but he did not make up for it. Instead, he suddenly made the devouring spirit sword swim like an agile fish. It avoided the front of the stone sword and stabbed towards the Sword Maniac Elder's arm. Chi! The Sword Maniac Elder didn't say a word. It was as if he was completely immersed in the way of the sword. The stone sword was still piercing forward. It was as if a mountain was collapsing, as if a building was tilting. The immense sword might was so mighty that it seemed to freeze the space around it. Yi Fei immediately felt that the devouring spirit sword in his hand had become sluggish. Before he could think of a way to break it, I have become obsessed with it. In my life, breaking through to the half-saint realm is my limit. Don't learn from me. It's better to pursue the way of the sword with your limited life than pursue the way of the sword with your limited life. It's not enough to be single-minded. You have to combine knowledge and action. When you reach this height one day, it will be the time for you to comprehend the sword soul. Combine knowledge and action. Yi Fei suddenly understood why he couldn't surpass the Sword Maniac Elder even though he understood the sword. It wasn't that he wasn't good at it, but that the Sword Maniac Elder's understanding of the sword had reached a terrifying level. Even a martial god wouldn't be able to reach such a level. However, the Sword Maniac Elder also had a fatal weakness. He was too obsessed with comprehending the sword. The deeper his understanding of the way of the sword, the more serious the negative impact on his cultivation. At the end of the martial world, cultivation was still the most important thing. Only by increasing one's realm could a warrior's lifespan increase. This way, they would have more time and energy to comprehend more profound sword technique. However, the Sword Maniac Elder did the opposite. He used his limited life to comprehend the way of the sword and neglected his cultivation. This was going astray and drilling himself into a dead end. I guess the old Master Jian also realized this point. That's why he left resolutely. He hoped to achieve the way of the sword again and break the shackles in his heart. If I help the old Master Jian improve his strength now, I won't be helping him. Instead, I'll be harming him. Only by relying on his own efforts and tempering can he break the shackles in his heart, set things right, and rediscover his own way of the martial Tao. Combining knowledge and action, this was cultivation. Old Master Jian, rest in peace. Chapter 1421. Seize every minute. The departure of the Sword Maniac Elder did not affect the liveliness of the entire North Sea Pass. It was still lively and bustling. When Yi Fei returned to the Sword Master Mansion, Yi Jian and Yi Bufan were already busy preparing the banquet and receiving the guests. As the only half-emperor in the northern region, Yi Fei's return was a big event and a joyous occasion. It was worthy of the family Ye's celebration and the four monarchs' visit in person. Zhao Xing also rushed over with the people of the Zhao royal clan to help. Although Zhao Xing had become the ruler of the North Sea Kingdom, Many of the Zhao royal clan had always lived in the North Sea Kingdom. They had long been inseparable from the Sword King manor. Congratulations, King of Northern Sea Nation. With the support of the family Yi, Northern Sea Nation will definitely prosper. With Zhao Xing's promotion to Wu Jun, Northern Sea Nation's status also increased greatly. It was no longer a small country that the rulers of several countries were giving Yi Fei face. Therefore, many of the older generation of Wu Jun and country rulers had put down their heirs and went up to greet Zhao Xing. They wanted to establish good relations in advance. Yi Jian and Yi Bufan, on the other hand, were surrounded by even more people who were praising them. This made Yi Jian and Yi Bufan sigh. Who would have thought that our tiny Yi clan, the Yi Alliance, which originated from the Blackstone City, would be able to develop to such an extent? Perhaps this is an opportunity for us old fellows. The old man sighed. He had thought that breaking through to the martial venerable realm was his limit, but in the Sage's Tower, he had already broken through to the martial king realm. He believed that within 10 years, he would have a chance to become a titled Wu Jun, just like Yi Jian and Yi Bufan. Feng Xinyang was standing beside the old prefecture lord. She had finally gotten together with the old prefecture lord and had taken down the burden of being the East Sea prefecture lord. Currently, Tianyun Wufu and Donghai Wu province had merged into one, forming a brand new Wu province. Bai Ling became the prefecture lord of Wu province. Zhuang Ling also became a teacher. With Yi Fei's help, they improved very quickly and had already reached the level of martial king. There were also a few talented juniors from the family Yi who had broken through to martial king. They did not receive many rewards from Yi Fei, but they had also broken through to martial king in the Sage's Tower. This was their own talent and hard work. He believed that it wouldn't be long before a few young geniuses from the North region would walk out of the family Yi. Yi Fei placed a lot of importance on these juniors, so he gave them some pointers in the Saint Tower. As for the other juniors of the family Yi, he also rewarded them handsomely. Among these accomplished juniors, 80% of them had integrated into the family Yi later on. On the other hand, the number of talented juniors in the family Yi of Blackrock City was very limited. To a certain extent, this also caused the dissatisfaction and complaints of many old people in the family Yi. They complained that Yi Jian was biased towards outsiders and that Yi Fei was unfair in his distribution. Yi Fei could even give out precious treasures like the heavenly Dao fruit to outsiders like Zhou Guang and Big Beard, but to true family Yi members like them, Yi Fei was so stingy that he only gave them some pills and spiritual stones. This kid has forgotten his ancestors. Has he forgotten that the blood flowing in our veins is the same as his? Only people like us are true family Yi members. Some old people in the family Yi got drunk and couldn't help but gather together to complain to each other. Some people even wanted to look for Yi Chao and Yi Tianai, the Grand Elder and Grand Elder of the family Yi, to protest to Yi Fei and ask for more treasures and a higher status. Yi Tianai hesitated when he heard this. Yi Chao pointed at them, his white beard shaking as he cursed, "A bunch of heartless bastards. How did you treat the Holy King when he was in dire straits? You insulted him, despised him, and in the end, almost joined forces to chase the Holy King out of the family Yi. How did the Holy King treat you? He forgave you and accepted you back into the family Yi, allowing you to live without worries and cultivate without worries. The Holy King was giving you face, but you didn't want it." Yi Tianai immediately felt ashamed and ignored these jealous people. Many of the old people in the family Yi who were complaining about the injustice immediately turned red and were tongue-tied. His heart was filled with regret, but no matter how much he regretted it, it was useless. Yesterday's cause was today's result. They could only look at the countless treasures with red eyes and stand silently in a corner, envious and jealous of the young man they once ridiculed and despised. Of course, only a small number of people were jealous, and they were the people at the very edge of the family Yi. They couldn't even cause a ripple, let alone a storm. Yi Fei never cared about these things. He was very busy now. He was busy receiving Wu Jun from the northern region and catching up with his old friends from the northern region. Bai Ling and Zhuang Ling were by his side. Beigong Chun and Beigong Yu were talking and laughing with them. Qin Bing and Zhu Zhen were sighing as they listened to Yi Fei talk about the strength of the central province and the dangers of the outer sea. Finally, Lin Xin and Yang Xiao also came. When old friends met, they couldn't help but drink to their heart's content. In the end, Qin Bing and Zhu Zhen both drank until they were dead drunk. As they drank, they both shed tears. Lin Xin and Yang Xiao were very open-minded. They never regretted the choice they made back then. The Taishan Holy Land needed us, so we stayed, Lin Xin explained to Yi Fei. Yi Fei nodded to show that he understood. The road of martial arts was not only cruel but also lonely. In the end, even he didn't know how many friends and old friends he would have left. All we can do is to cherish what we have now. Yi Fei raised his wine glass. Yes, cherish what we have now. Heroes should seize every moment. Lin Xin and Yang Xiao raised their glasses at the same time. Qin Bing and Zhu Zhen also wiped their tears and raised their glasses. The inconspicuous Chen Feng immediately brought more spirit wine for everyone to drink. At the same time, Chen Feng's talent was the worst and most ordinary among them. But now, he had surpassed many geniuses with great talent and aptitude. He was now the proudest son of the Western Heavenly King. Even when the Western Heavenly King said that he would pass the position of Heavenly King to him, Zhu Zhen also took advantage of the wine. He said that he wanted to rope Chen Feng in and entrust him with important tasks, but Chen Feng directly refused. Saint King Yi once said that even the weakest ant has a great power that cannot be ignored. I don't have the courage of Saint King Yi. I'm just the most ordinary and ordinary warrior, but I can also pursue the peak of martial arts. Just like that, Chen Feng gave up all the glory and wealth, and walked on an extraordinary path with an ordinary appearance. This caused Qin Bing and Zhu Zhen's faces to be filled with complicated expressions, and they became silent. The atmosphere gradually became a little sad. At this time, the lords of Beichuan and Beihuang walked over from afar with wine glasses in their hands. They bowed to Yi Fei at the same time with mixed feelings. Greetings, Saint King Yi. You two are too courteous. You are my seniors. Lin Tianjiao and Fu Renjie are also my good friends. It's better if you directly call me by my name. Yi Fei stood up and took the initiative to toast to the two kings. That attracted the envious gazes of many martial lords. This also made the lords of Beichuan and Beihuang feel better. They quickly asked Yi Fei about Fu Renjie and Lin Tianjiao. When they learned that Fu Renjie had become a peerless genius and Lin Tianjiao had awakened the desolate emperor bloodline of the Lin family and become a heaven-level disciple of the true martial sacred academy, the two lords were even more excited. They completely let go of their worries. From Yi Fei's attitude, they felt sincerity and magnanimity. They understood that Yi Fei had no ambition to conquer the northern region at all. It's us who measured the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. The Lord of Beichuan felt ashamed and sighed. Chapter 1422. Returning to the sage sect, Saint Emperor Yi? Nodding his head slightly, Yi Fei did not reject this form of address this time. The reason he returned to the Yi clan this time was to build up the prosperity of the Yi clan for the rest of his life. At the same time, it was also to relieve him of the worries of pursuing martial arts. Only when the family Yi was strong would he be able to pursue the peak of the martial Tao without any distractions. Therefore, he had taken out the sage pagoda and a large number of treasures to increase the strength of Yi Jian and the others at all costs. This way, even if something happened to him in the future, the family Yi would still be able to maintain its prosperity in the central province. Because too many cultivators had come to the northern sea pass, the banquet at the family Yi lasted for a full 10 days. During these 10 days, Yi Fei took the time to arrange everything in the family Yi. He also left 5 spirit veins as the foundation of the family Ye's strength. Then, he officially set off for the 6 Paths Sacred Sects to see Yi Shanshan and the elders of the Sage Sect. Yi Fei had never forgotten that the reason he could become so powerful today was because he had obtained the War God's Tao from the 6 Paths Sacred Sects. About half a month later, the outline of Quicksand City appeared before his eyes. This was the former capital of the Northern Divine Kingdom. It was also the place where the last martial emperor of the Northern Divine Region, the great Emperor Wang Qing, comprehended the Tao. Even though 10 years had passed and the assessment of the 6 Paths Sacred Sects had not yet begun, the entire Quicksand City was still very prosperous. At this time, a mighty stone puppet stood at the top of the city wall, looking into the distance while nimbly painting. This had faintly become a strange scenery in Quicksand City. Seeing this scenery, Yi Fei's mouth could not help but twitch. Then, he heard a voice that made him extremely depressed. Wahahaha, little Yi, I haven't seen you in so long. Did you miss me? It's rare for me to come all the way here to pick you up. You must be very excited and touched. Don't be shy. If you're excited, just shout. I understand. The stone puppet assumed the posture of an elder, its eyes containing a trace of expectation and encouragement. He seemed to be waiting for Yi Fei to speak. Yi Fei did not say a word. His face darkened as he silently took out the dragon turtle. He pointed at the wretched rock in front of him and said, "Dragon turtle, bite it. That's a Tao enlightenment stone that has gained sentience." Roar! The dragon turtle ran out and saw a large stone man talking. His body was even more shiny. The dragon turtle's eyes lit up. Inside the beast mark space, Xiao Chao was also biting his finger. He seemed to be checking whether the stone puppet was tasty or not. However, the dragon turtle couldn't care less. It immediately pounced over and opened its black mouth to bite. It had wanted to taste the Enlightenment Stone for a long time. Unfortunately, the Enlightenment Stone in the true martial divine hall was too cunning. The dragon turtle had tried to trick it several times but failed. Now that there was a chance, the dragon turtle would not be polite. It opened its mouth and bit off half of the stone puppet's head. "Brat Yi, you're not human. Other people let dogs bite people, but you actually let a tortoise bite people. Get out of my way. Don't come any closer." The stone puppet was so angry that its stone skin turned pitch black. It hurriedly pulled off the big black turtle that was biting its head. The dragon turtle refused to give up. Seeing that it couldn't bite off the stone puppet's head, it opened its mouth again and suddenly bit down on a stone leg. Crunching sounds could be heard. What a shameless big black turtle. Do you think I'm a fat piece of meat? You bite me the moment you see me. Let me tell you, I'm fine when I'm not angry, but once I'm angry, even the heavens are afraid. Damn, what are you doing? Before the stone puppet could speak, the dragon turtle had already dragged it to the side. It quickly took out a big black pot and tried to fry it to see if it could soften the stone puppet. The stone puppet fumed with anger and kicked the dragon turtle over on the spot. Then, it angrily brushed a bucket of paint on its head where it had been bitten. It said to Yi Fei unhappily, "Brat, you win. I'm a kind-hearted person and won't stoop to your level. Follow me, the guardian elder is waiting for you." As it spoke, the stone puppet didn't give the dragon turtle a chance to pounce on it. It suddenly used the brush in its hand to paint the shape of a mountain on the dragon turtle's back. Boom! Suddenly, the entire city walls of Quicksand City shook violently as if a terrifying mountain was pressing down on it. The dragon turtle's limbs went soft and it was pressed to the ground, unable to move. Then, the stone puppet splashed the paint bucket in its hand into the sky. It swung the brush in its hand and quickly drew a black gate. The gate opened with a bang and turned from a few streaks of ink into a real gate. The 6 sacred sects have such a method? Yi Fei's eyes lit up. He had released the dragon turtle to test the stone puppet's strength. In the end, the stone puppet was able to attack with painting. It was simply unbelievable. This is the method of a saint. When I was young, I was proficient in the 4 arts. I've charmed countless young ladies and young wives. How about it? If you want to learn, I can teach you. The stone puppet's eyes revealed an expectant and encouraging expression. It was as if it was encouraging Yi Fei to be brave enough to shout. Yi Fei still didn't shout. He only wanted to press the stone puppet to the ground and beat it up. Then, he walked towards the dragon turtle and wanted to wipe off the paint on its body. However, he realized that he couldn't do it. He then tried to lift the dragon turtle up from the ground. However, he realized that the dragon turtle only had an additional layer of paint on its back. The dragon turtle's weight had reached hundreds of thousands of pounds. It was no wonder that the dragon turtle couldn't get up despite its strength. At this moment, the stone puppet looked at Yi Fei with an expectant expression. It encouraged Yi Fei to be brave enough to shout, "I can let you go, dragon turtle. Screw you, I'll carry it all the same." Yi Fei carried the dragon turtle on his shoulder with one hand. It was as if he was carrying a huge mountain. He then walked into the gate. Strangely, the gate was also made by the stone puppet with paint. It was no different from a real gate. When Yi Fei walked in, he had already crossed the vast desert and appeared in the 6 sacred sects' palace. He couldn't help but admit that the stone puppet was quite capable. It's a pity that it's too cheap. It's even cheaper than the big blue stone. Yi Fei shook his head gloomily. This kid can actually carry a mountain with one hand. It looks like his battle demon path has reached the large success stage of his physical body. Those who come from our Azura sacred palace are indeed invincible. The stone puppet was secretly surprised. He had been waiting here with the intention of testing Yi Fei. Yi Fei's performance had undoubtedly satisfied the stone puppet. The stone puppet also revealed a gratified smile. Then, he lifted his foot and walked into the gate. Soon after, the gate collapsed and turned back into a pile of paint that fell onto the city walls. There were already martial artists who had secretly noticed this shocking scene. After Yi Fei and the stone puppet left, the martial artist immediately rushed up the city walls to inspect the paint. However, he was shocked to find that it was the most ordinary paint. There was nothing special about it. This method is simply amazing. The martial artist's heart was shaken. He walked down the city walls in a daze. Somewhere in Quicksand City, in a stone workshop, an old man was cutting stones. At this time, he looked away from the city walls. A vertical eye appeared on his forehead like a sapphire. There was a trace of surprise on his face as he said, "This little fellow reached the half-step emperor realm so quickly. His combat strength might even surpass a half-step emperor. He is indeed worthy of being the successor chosen by the 6 sacred sects." Chapter 1423. Guardian Elder. On the hill, there was an old figure. He looked like an ancient fossil as he stood in the middle of the sandstorm. Layers of sandstorm piled up on his body, and some were even embedded in the wrinkles on his face. "Guardian Elder, I didn't let you down. I brought Yi Fei back safely." The moment the stone puppet returned to the 6 paths sacred sect, it shouted loudly. This made Yi Fei very depressed. He looked at the old figure on the high platform with some doubt. He knew that this old man was the Guardian Elder of the 6 paths sacred sect. Back then, it was the Guardian Elder who discovered his identity as a person abandoned by the heavens. However, the Guardian Elder didn't chase him away. Perhaps he was like many people in the central region who saw the people abandoned by the heavens as a scourge and avoided them. Instead, he gave him a chance to pass the test. It was also that chance that allowed Yi Fei to join the Six Paths sacred sect and walk on the path of despair. He didn't hate the guardian elder. Instead, he felt a trace of gratitude. First, he bowed respectfully to the guardian elder. Then, Yi Fei asked the question in his heart, "Guardian elder, is the Six Paths sacred sect in danger?" From the stone puppet's purposeful wait in Quicksand City, he could feel an uneasy atmosphere. The guardian elder looked at Yi Fei gently and said, "The Six Paths sacred sect isn't in danger. However, there is a hidden danger in the desert. It might be disadvantageous to you." The desert, could it be the stone door in the great Emperor Wang Qing's tomb? Yi Fei reacted quickly and immediately thought of the mysterious and strange stone door. The guardian elder's expression became serious. He sighed and said, "Back then, the tomb keeper shouldn't have let you come into contact with the stone door too early. He should have let the stone door remember your aura. Now, the stone door's seal is showing signs of loosening. Once you pass through the desert, it's very likely that the thing inside will attack you." "Attack me?" Yi Fei was secretly shocked. He couldn't help but think of the mysterious voice that came from the stone door. Even now, he still felt a chill down his spine. "Guardian elder, what's inside the stone door? Why is it targeting me?" Yi Fei hurriedly asked. "Because you're a person abandoned by the heavens. You're the best target for the shaman to possess and cast spells." This time, it was the stone puppet who answered. Yi Fei was even more surprised. Shaman? Could it be that the one who destroyed the Six Paths sacred sect wasn't a human demon, but a shaman? Human demon? He's just a puppet controlled by a magus. The guardian elder sneered disdainfully. Their words made Yi Fei even more confused. He rubbed his head and looked at the guardian elder. "I'm confused. Elder, why don't you start from the beginning?" The guardian elder and the stone puppet were stunned, and then they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "The tomb keeper didn't tell you anything." "That's right, you were too weak at that time, so it was useless to tell you. Do you know why the northern region's Tishan country built by great Emperor Wang Qing turned into ruins overnight? Do you know why there is a martial god's forbidding aura covering the entire northern region to prevent outsiders from entering? We did it to guard against great shamans. Shamans are a terrifying race. They're very similar to us humans, but they don't have souls and can't cultivate primordial spirit. But they can control the powerful rules of heaven and earth through sacrifices and countless strange secret techniques. The stronger the sacrifice, the stronger the power of the shaman tribe." The guardian elder recalled, "I once heard from the 7 palace masters that the sorcerer tribe had been constantly invading our sky martial continent since the ancient era, trying to find something. It was also from then on that the ancient era's martial gods and the ancient era's martial gods all fought bloody battles with great sorcerers in order to protect this continent. Unfortunately, the sorcerer tribe's strength was too strong. Not only did they have great sorcerers who were comparable to martial gods, they also had sorcerers who were comparable to heaven and earth sovereigns and sorcerer gods. The continuous wars destroyed the primordial era and the ancient era. But even so, there were still shamans coming and provoking us, trying to find something. The shaman tribe even supported some experts to establish the Hall of Life and Death. They had absolute control over the Tianwu continent and mobilized the entire continent's power to find that thing. Back then, the human devil was controlled by the shaman race. He didn't hesitate to destroy this continent to find that thing. If it weren't for the 7 palace masters joining forces with the majority of the martial gods and martial emperors to resist, the martial heaven continent would have long since been destroyed. Our 6 Dao sacred palace was cursed by a powerful shaman at that time and was almost destroyed. A trace of grief flashed across the guardian elder's face. The stone puppet also lowered its head in a rare moment of silence. Yi Fei knew that it must have been a cruel period of time. Who knew how many people had died in that war? From that day onwards, the Tianwu continent that had lost the martial gods and martial emperors had completely declined. What he didn't expect was that the Hall of Life and Death was established by the Shaman tribe, a puppet organization that ruled the Tianwu continent. No wonder the Hall of Life and Death had a strange secret technique that could refine corpse puppets and turn the dead into living dead. Needless to say, this secret technique wasn't a martial art, but some kind of evil witchcraft. Oh right, if the shaman tribe is so powerful, why aren't there any rumors about them? Yi Fei asked in surprise. The guardian elder shook his head. We're not very clear about this. It seems that as long as the martial emperor doesn't appear in the Tianwu continent, the shaman tribe won't appear, allowing us to develop freely. But once a martial emperor appears, shamans will appear and kill the martial emperor. 10,000 years ago, I advised Wang Qing Great Emperor not to break through to the martial emperor realm. Even if he did, he had to hide it. Unfortunately, Wang Qing was too conceited and rejected my advice. Not only did he reveal his identity as a martial emperor, he also established the powerful Northern Region Kingdom. As expected, not long after Wang Qing's identity was revealed, powerful shamans came to the Northern Region. In one night, the Kingdom of Heaven was destroyed. The entire Northern Region was plunged into misery and suffering. Even though the two martial emperors, Wang Qing and I, joined forces, we couldn't defeat the shaman. All the martial kings and martial sages were killed. The Northern Region's spiritual veins and luck were exhausted. I was severely injured on the spot. As for Wang Qing, he used his life to severely injure the shaman and sealed him in the emperor's tomb. The guardian elder's face was filled with sorrow. Yi Fei was also secretly shocked. Although he didn't experience the battle, he could imagine how cruel it was. The powerful Northern Region Kingdom was destroyed in one night. The guardian elder and Wang Qing Great Emperor, the two martial emperors, joined forces, but they could only severely injure the shaman and couldn't kill him. This showed how powerful and terrifying the shaman tribe was. Chapter 1424. Domain Level 4. Hearing Yi Fei's words, the guardian elder and the stone puppet looked at each other and smiled bitterly. The guardian elder sighed and said, "This is also a problem we need to figure out. In the past, when we fought the sorcerer tribe, there were no survivors. The only survivor was the sorcerer sealed in the desert. He must know what the sorcerer tribe is looking for, and you are the key to getting him to speak." Me? Yi Fei pointed at himself, his face full of surprise. The stone puppet said, "Of course it's you. Didn't I say that a person abandoned by the heavens is the best material for the sorcerer tribe? That sorcerer has already noticed you. If it's you, maybe you can pry open that thing's mouth, and we can get more information." Wouldn't that be dangerous? Yi Fei was depressed. One had to know that that was a powerful sorcerer that even two martial emperors couldn't defeat. He suddenly had the illusion that he was being used as a lab rat. Seeing Yi Fei still making excuses after obtaining the sage sex inheritance, the stone puppet was so angry that black smoke rose from its head. It lifted the bucket of paint and wanted to smash it over. "Little Yi, those who come from our Azura Saint Palace are all heroes. But I don't want to be a hero. Heroes always die the quickest," Yi Fei whispered. The stone puppet was so angry that it almost fainted. "If I knew you were so cowardly, I wouldn't have let you pass the Azura Saint Palace's test. I've met the wrong person. The prestige of our Azura Saint Palace's disciples." The stone puppet beat its chest and stomped its feet, its expression full of disgust. "But I didn't get any benefits from passing the test, right?" Yi Fei calmly glanced at the stone puppet. The stone puppet's body stiffened. Only then did it understand that Yi Fei wanted benefit. It became even angrier. One had to know that the Azura Saint Palace's disciples in the past all treated treasures like dirt. There had never been an Azura Saint Palace's disciple as greedy as Yi Fei. This brat shouldn't have joined my Azura Saint Palace. He should have joined the Devil Saint Palace. He's just a little devil. The stone puppet was speechless. The guardian elder's face was full of smiles. Instead, he appreciated Yi Fei's straightforwardness. It's not our style to throw away our heads and spill our blood for empty righteousness. If it weren't for the existence of the sorcerer tribe, which posed a huge threat to the martial gods from the Archean era and the Ancient Era wouldn't have risked their lives to resist to the end. All heroes are for their own selfish interests. Little guy, tell me, what benefits do you want? I don't want anything else. I just want Elder to guarantee the safety of my sister and family. Yi. If possible, I also want Elder to see if you can help me fuse with this domain. Yi Fei took out the strange domain he had obtained from Black Prison. It was a blurry silver world that had been sealed in a strange crystal ball using a special method. Seeing what he took out, the guardian elder and the stone puppet were both shocked. This is a complete domain stripped from a martial emperor's body. Brat, where did you get this? They were both shocked. This kind of thing was truly appalling. When Yi Fei first saw it, he was also shocked. It was because he wasn't sure that he didn't dare to refine it. He planned to come to Glory Sect to ask the guardian elder. Yi Fei didn't hide anything and told them about his discovery of Black Prison. The stone puppet and the guardian elder were both shocked. It's Black Prison. No wonder. Elder, are you familiar with Black Prison? Yi Fei asked curiously. Of course. Black Prison exists in many martial artist continents. It's a terrifying assassin organization. They claim that as long as they have money, they can even assassinate heavenly venerables. I didn't expect Black Prison to survive after the Ancient Age was destroyed. Yi Fei, you have to be careful. The guardian elder's expression suddenly became very serious. Establishing the assassin palace, skinning the martial emperor and depriving him of his domain. This is a ceremony that Black Prison used to crown their holy son. This domain should be something they prepared for their holy son. Now that it has fallen into your hands, Black Prison will definitely investigate this matter to the end. Until now, Black Prison still has a saint. Yi Fei was shocked and immediately felt depressed. Lu Zhaoyang, that scammer, was indeed a scammer. The guardian elder said solemnly. Not now, but certainly in the Ancient Age. Even if the Ancient Era was destroyed, with Black Hell's strength, they would definitely have treasures to seal their chosen saint. Now that they have allowed their saint to awaken, it seems like Black Hell has also predicted the arrival of the Great Era. The Great Era. It wasn't the first time Yi Fei heard this term. The quasi-emperors of Sun Luo Hall and True Martial Sacred Academy had all mentioned the Great Era. It was said that it would be the golden age of martial arts. A large number of martial emperors and martial gods would be born at that time. It was no wonder that Black Prison would turn an elder into a forbidden spirit and wait in the Black Prison space. They even prepared a complete domain in advance. All of this was Black Prison paving the way for their saint to enter the Great Era. However, Yi Fei had barged in before the saint of Black Prison had awakened. Not only had he seized the domain, but he had also destroyed Black Prison. Kid, you're really unlucky. Ah. The stone puppet wouldn't let go of this opportunity to attack Yi Fei. It immediately took pleasure in his misfortune. Yi Fei was even more depressed. His face darkened as he looked at the domain in his hand. Since I've already offended them, there's no reason for me to return the treasure that's already in my hands. Elder, please help me integrate this domain. The guardian elder said solemnly. This is a complete heaven-level domain. Fortunately, you didn't rashly integrate it. Otherwise, you might not be able to withstand the power of this domain and be swallowed by it instead. As he spoke, the guardian elder extended his hand and took the domain. Then, he began to undo the seal on it. As the seal was undone, A vast amount of energy quickly spread out from the domain. Yi Fei's expression changed drastically when he felt the power. Could it be that domains are also divided into different grades? Why is this domain so much more terrifying than the blood demon domain that I obtained? As he spoke, he subconsciously released the blood demon domain. However, it still couldn't withstand the domain in the Guardian Elder's hand and the incomparably vast aura. Another domain, and it seems like it's a domain that's exclusive to demon gods. This kid, what kind of dog's hit luck does he have? The stone puppet was very jealous. That was a domain. If others had a domain, they would be laughing their heads off even in their dreams. However, Yi Fei had it good. Black Prison had snatched one, and he had integrated another. The disciples of our Azura Saint Palace are indeed abnormal. Suddenly, the stone puppet became happy again. It also found Yi Fei pleasing to the eye again. Looking at the blood demon domain released by Yi Fei, the Guardian Elder's eyebrows twitched fiercely. He then calmly commented, "Domains are divided into different grades. They are mortal grade, king grade, earth grade, and heaven grade. Generally, those below the martial emperor realm can only integrate low-grade domains. Only those who have reached the martial emperor realm can integrate heaven-grade domains. Heaven grade is the standard to become a martial emperor. It seems that Black Prison's ambition isn't small. They actually want their saint to be born with a heaven-grade domain. From there, he can suppress those of the same rank and take the lead in this great era." The Guardian Elder shook his head. Suddenly, a terrifying aura emerged from his body. It was a black domain, like the world of demons. It was pitch black, deep, powerful, and filled with murderous intent. Chapter 1425. Perfecting the domain. Yi Fei nodded repeatedly. Just by looking at the Guardian Elder's domain, he knew that the Guardian Elder was not a good person. Seeing the fear in Yi Fei and the stone puppet's eyes, the Guardian Elder smiled helplessly and quickly emphasized, "I am a good person. Moreover, among the 6 sacred sects, our demonic Saint Palace is not the strongest. The strongest will always be the Azura Saint Palace. Unfortunately, the strongest will always die the quickest, just like the stone puppet beside you." "The strongest?" Yi Fei looked at the stone puppet in surprise. The stone puppet immediately puffed out its chest and brushed some paint on its face. Then, it looked at Yi Fei with a glossy face and said earnestly, "Little boy, I like to keep a low profile. Even if you worship me from the bottom of your heart, you must not show it." Although it said this, the stone puppet's face revealed a trace of encouragement and expectation, encouraging Yi Fei to bravely show it. Yi Fei's face immediately darkened. If it weren't for the fact that the situation didn't allow it, he would have let Xiao Chao come out and take a bite out of it. Let's see if this stone puppet still dared to act cheap. As the Guardian Elder's domain appeared, the aura of the silver domain in his hand was immediately suppressed and its majesty gradually weakened. Very soon, the aura of the silver domain had weakened to the same level as the blood demon domain. Only then did the Guardian Elder toss the silver domain back. Yi Fei subconsciously caught it and discovered that the domain in his hand had already turned into a magnificent silver sphere. It was illusory yet incomparably real. "Elder, what are you?" Yi Fei said doubtfully. "I have sealed part of it. If you don't become a martial emperor and fuse with a heavenly domain, you will definitely die. Only by suppressing its energy and forming an ordinary domain can you successfully fuse with it. Of course, if you become a martial emperor, it will automatically transform into a king domain. When you become a quasi-emperor, it will become an earth domain. When you become a martial emperor, it will return to being a heavenly domain." The Guardian Elder explained indifferently and pointed at Yi Fei's blood demon domain. "Your demon god domain is the same. The demon god that controlled you also used the same method to seal the blood demon domain. It's just that his method is more ingenious than mine. He actually managed to completely fuse the domain into your blood and soul, allowing you to use it without refining. It's really ingenious. It's a pity that my sage sex successor can't extract your blood to study. It's a pity that I can't extract your blood, demon god's blood. Guardian Elder's eyes. Yi Fei's eyes. Yi Fei's eyes. Yi Fei was so frightened that his face's face. Yi Fei was his face dark. Only now did he understand that the stone puppet was telling the truth. This guardian elder was truly an old devil. He was even more ruthless than the blood demon. Yi Fei immediately made up his mind. No matter who he provoked in the future, he would never provoke this guardian elder. His attitude became even more respectful as he thanked the guardian elder. Many thanks, guardian elder. It's a small matter. But if you die, remember to keep your demon god's corpse. Remember, you must leave your corpse behind. This old man has never seen anyone with the devil god's bloodline. The guardian elder reminded him worriedly. Hearing this warning, Yi Fei felt unwell. The stone puppet glared at the guardian elder and said, "Old brat, you want to fight? Remember, Yi Fei is a disciple of my Azura Saint Palace. If you want to cause trouble, go cause trouble for that disciple of your demonic Saint Palace." A disciple of the demonic Saint Palace? Could it be Zhao Qianjun? Senior apprentice brother Zhao? Yi Fei interrupted in surprise. Indeed, it's Zhao Qianjun. He's not bad. He's already passed the demonic Saint Palace's test and became my disciple. Yi Fei, this is all thanks to you. My demonic Saint Palace has a successor. Although the guardian elder was ruthless, he was still very reasonable. Yi Fei waved his hands. It's a small matter. I'm also a member of the Saint sect. Naturally, I have to do my best for the Saint sect. It's good that you can think like that. But it's a pity that my 6 Saint sects, the Vicious Beasts Path, the Hell Path, and the Heaven Path, have no successors. The guardian elder's face was heavy, but his turbid eyes were fixed on Yi Fei. I'll do my best. I'll find suitable candidates for the 3 palaces as soon as possible. Yi Fei was speechless. It was good enough that he could find one, but he had to find 3 more. This old man didn't force you. The guardian elder said. How could that be? I'm willing. Yi Fei's face was bitter, looking depressed. The guardian elder suddenly smiled and said casually, Gather all the successors of the 6 Saint sects, and you can open the sect master's palace. It seems that the Saint sect's treasures are stored inside. There are also the 7 martial gods' immemorial heavenly art. What? Immemorial heavenly arts? Several? Yi Fei's spirit was instantly shaken, and he said in a loud and clear voice, Elder, I have someone to recommend right now. I have a senior brother named Jing Wushou. His talent and aptitude are top-notch, and he seems to be able to enter heavenly Dao. I also have a good friend called Lin Tianjiao. He has the desolate emperor's bloodline and seems to be able to try the hell path. Oh right, there's also Fu Renjie. He's a demon-birth heavenly fetus and seems to be able to enter the vicious beast's path. The guardian elder and the stone puppet were speechless. But the 3 people Yi Fei mentioned made their eyes light up. Moreover, the guardian elder had a certain impression of Lin Tianjiao and Fu Renjie. He stroked his beard and praised, Good. As long as they are from the Northern Territory and have no problem with their temperament, you can let them come and take the test. This old man is looking forward to seeing all of you gather the 6 palaces' inheritances and restore the glory of our Saint sect. As your reward, you can now enter the Azura Saint Palace and choose 2 treasures. The guardian elder now understood that Yi Fei was a master who wouldn't act without seeing some incentive. If he wanted Yi Fei to work hard, he had to give him some benefit. In the end, whether it was Zhao Qianjun that Yi Fei introduced or Yi Shanshan that came before, the guardian elder was very satisfied. Thus, he decided to motivate Yi Fei in advance. Hearing the guardian elder's command, The stone puppet let out a blood-curdling scream and fell to the ground. This old man's old waist, ah! If I fall down, I'm afraid I won't be able to get up for 8 to 10 years. Little brat ye, this old man has no way to bring you to the Azura Saint Palace. How about you follow the guardian elder to his demonic Saint Palace and pick out 2 treasures? The stone puppet winked at Yi Fei, hinting to Yi Fei that the demonic Saint Palace's treasures were better than the Azura Saint Palace's treasures. He was just short of forcing Yi Fei into the demonic Saint Palace. Seeing the pained expression on the stone puppet's face, Yi Fei immediately cast a disdainful look at it. To think that this lowly stone puppet had the nerve to say that it viewed treasures as dirt. It was clearly a miser, a miser. The guardian elder was so angry that his beard was trembling. With a wave of his hand, a gust of wind swept up the stone puppet and Yi Fei. There isn't a single good thing in your Azura Saint Palace. All of you scram for this old man. Pung! The wind howled and the palace doors opened wide. Before Yi Fei could react, he and the stone puppet had already been swept into the Azura Saint Palace. Yi Fei felt wronged. It was clear that the stone puppet was a good-for-nothing and he was a righteous person. I've met the wrong people. If I knew this would happen, I would have chosen the demonic Saint Palace. Yi Fei shook his head, depressed. Chapter 1426. Treasure Selection, Dragon Turtle, Bite It. Yi Fei couldn't bear it any longer. He had already used up billions and billions of spirit stones, but in the end, this broken stone puppet was even worse than a cheapskate. It actually gave him 2 spirit stones and even told him to use them sparingly. Yi Fei had already decided that during this treasure selection, he would definitely take away the best treasure from the Azura Saint Palace. This would also cause the stone puppet to feel some heartache. Taking advantage of the fact that the dragon turtle had already rushed over to block his path, Yi Fei didn't hesitate and immediately walked deeper into the Azura Saint Palace. The stone puppet cried out again, "Little brat Yi, our Azura Saint Palace is really poor. Why don't we discuss this? We can sneak into the demonic Saint Palace." "Discuss my ass. Don't think that just because you don't hand it over, I can't find it." Yi Fei secretly signaled with his eyes. The dragon turtle had already pounced on the stone puppet from behind. It still wasn't willing to give up. Took out the black pot and heated it up, wanting to see if it could be fried. The stone puppet was instantly enraged. It threw a bucket of paint at the dragon turtle and slammed it to the ground, immobilizing it. It didn't bother to deal with the dragon turtle as it rushed into the Saint Palace. During this time, the stone puppet even tried to activate the Saint Palace's restrictions to trap Yi Fei inside. Its miserly nature was revealed without a doubt. Yi Fei also decisively woke up Xiao Qiao. With Xiao Qiao's sensitivity to spiritual energy, not only did these restrictions not harm Yi Fei, but they also allowed Xiao Qiao to quickly find the location of the Azura Saint Palace's treasure room. It was a massive chamber with many sculptures placed inside. There were men and women, young men and old men, but all of them exuded a majestic aura. Some wielded sabers, some wielded swords, but most of them were empty-handed. It was as if they could destroy everything with their bare hand. Are these all disciples of the Azura Saint Palace? Yi Fei looked at these lifelike sculptures. He could actually feel a powerful pressure coming from them. This pressure was even more terrifying than when he faced the guardian elder. Just by looking at these sculptures, he could imagine just how powerful the Azura Saint Palace had been at its peak. The stone puppet also walked over and sighed. Only the strongest battle god can obtain the title of Azura. But don't look at their flashy appearances. In truth, when they were alive, they were villains, bandits, hoodlums, and even female hoodlums. In the entire Azura Saint Palace, only I can be considered as pure as ice and jade, untainted by mud. Little Yi, if you take one of them, you'll be unlucky for 10 years. If you take 2 of them, you'll be unlucky for 20 years. That marshals. That martial. That. There's also that black sword. It was originally the signature treasure of some sword faction. But in the end, it was snatched back by some bandit. That sword faction chased them all the way from the starry skies to the martial sky continent. They threatened that anyone who held that sword would be their mortal enemy. The stone puppet jabbered on, threatening Lin Fan. He was just short of describing these treasures as dreadful beasts that would kill anyone who touched them. Yi Fei curled his lips. He cursed the stone puppet for being so stingy. At the same time, he retorted, I've even offended Black Prison. Why would I be afraid of a martial emperor's family? What starry sky sword faction? I think that black sword is pretty good. I want that sword. This little brat, what a poisonous gaze of all things. He actually chose my Azura St. Palace's #1 divine sword. The stone puppet's eyelids twitched. He stared blankly as Yi Fei took the black sword from the stone table below the sculpture. My heart hurts. The black sword looked unremarkable, but it was incomparably heavy. As soon as Yi Fei picked it up, the bones in his arm began to emit cracking sounds, as if they were about to be crushed by the weight of the sword. He hastily put down the black sword. Boom! The black sword fell to the ground, causing the ground of the Azura St. Palace to fiercely tremble. Yi Fei's complexion changed. Such a heavy sword. He couldn't imagine how that senior from the Azura St. Palace had been able to lift it up and carry it all the way from the Starry Sky sword faction back to the Six Paths sacred sects. This black sword is definitely a treasure that surpasses imperial armaments. Yi Fei judged. The stone puppet also came over and looked at the black sword. That's right. This black sword was created by a Starry Sky sword faction called the Everlasting Sect. They destroyed several mortal planets and collected the core meteorites of those planets to forge it. It's only a sword embryo and hasn't been forged into a half-step divine artifact. In any case, you definitely won't be able to use it, so why don't you keep it? A half-step divine artifact sword embryo. Yi Fei's eyes suddenly lit up. Imperial armaments were generally used by martial emperors, so a half-step divine artifact could very well be a weapon used by martial gods. Since he had come across such a good item, he definitely couldn't let it go. At this moment, Yi Fei didn't care whether he could use it or not. He used all his strength and lifted the heavy black sword onto his shoulder. Boom! When he lifted the black sword again, the heavy weight caused Yi Fei's bones to creak, even though his physical body had reached the large success stage. However, when he thought about how the black sword was made from stars, it was normal for it to be so heavy. At least I can carry it. This proves that this black sword isn't unusable. Yi Fei liked this black sword very much. Even if he couldn't use it now, once his battle demon Wei broke through to the 9th or 10th level, his strength would increase. At that time, he would naturally be able to wield this black sword with ease. At that time, even a martial emperor might not be able to withstand a blow from his sword, let alone a martial emperor. After checking that the black sword wasn't sealed or had produced a sword spirit, Yi Fei didn't stand on ceremony and put it into his space belt. The space belt was very special. The space inside was weightless. Therefore, no matter how heavy the black sword was, it could still fit inside. Of course, even weightless space had its limit. After putting the black sword into his space belt, Yi Fei could clearly feel that his space belt was about to reach its limit. He could only helplessly give up on the idea of taking the war hammer that was said to have killed a martial emperor. After all, based on the weight of the war hammer, even if it wasn't as heavy as the black sword, it wasn't far off. As for the second weapon, I'll still choose something lighter. It's best if it's a long-range weapon. Yi Fei thought of the frost bow that had been completely destroyed. That was the first imperial armament he had obtained. Unfortunately, he hadn't used it much before it was completely destroyed. However, he still had the frost arrow. However, he didn't have a suitable bow that could withstand the cold air of the frost arrow. Therefore, Yi Fei quickly decided that he needed to find a good bow. Coincidentally, there were many female disciples in the Azura Saint Palace, apart from a small number who were tall and burly, making the men blush with shame. There were also gentle and petite girls who were like elves in the forest. These girls all liked to use light, long-range weapons. Soon, Yi Fei arrived in front of a sculpture of a girl dressed in green. Chapter 14:27. Brother and sister meet. Yi Fei used his divine will to check the bow again, but he didn't find anything special. He decided to give up. After all, the Azura Saint Palace had more than one bow. When the stone puppet saw Yi Fei pick up the bow, it was secretly nervous. It was only when Yi Fei put the bow down that it let out a long sigh of relief. However, just when Yi Fei and the stone puppet were no longer paying attention to the green bow, Xiao Qiao suddenly widened her eyes in the beast mark space. She stared at the green bow and silently cried. Xiao Qiao, what's wrong? Yi Fei still had a part of his divine will left in the beast mark. When he saw Xiao Qiao crying, he was a little puzzled and hurriedly asked. Xiao Qiao also woke up. She wiped the tears from her face in surprise, but there was no sadness on her face. She looked at Yi Fei with the same puzzled expression. Xiao Qiao isn't crying, but yawning because she's tired? Yi Fei was puzzled. Xiao Qiao blinked and looked at Yi Fei in confusion. Then, Xiao Qiao couldn't help but look at the bow again. She was a little stunned, but Xiao Qiao didn't know why she was stunned. Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. Xiao Qiao, could it be that you recognize this bow? Xiao Qiao shook her head, indicating that she didn't recognize it, but she wasn't sure. She hesitantly gestured to Yi Fei that she felt that this bow was very familiar, as if she had seen it somewhere before. Yi Fei didn't say anything and immediately picked up the bow. He said to the stone puppet, I want this bow. Kid, you better think carefully. This bow is the worst among all of them. The stone puppet was clearly stunned. Yi Fei had also inspected the bow and discovered that it was indeed an ordinary emperor weapon. But even so, he still decided to take it, not for himself, but for Xiao Qiao. Little Yi, listen to me. It's best if you change to another weapon. You can choose any other weapon you want, but this bow is an inauspicious object. The stone puppet revealed a difficult expression. It was rare that it didn't belittle Yi Chen, but instead revealed a hint of worry. An ominous object? Yi Fei asked doubtfully. The stone puppet said in a serious tone, Palace Master obtained this bow by accident after killing a great shaman. The strange thing is that this bow is extremely powerful in the hands of a great shaman. It's clearly a monarch weapon, but it can cause harm to a martial god. However, in our hands, it becomes the most ordinary monarch weapon. Its power is extremely weak. Furthermore, it's very strange. Everyone who used this bow died in the end. The stone puppet pointed at the girl in green and said in a sorrowful tone, Take her for example. She was once the disciple of our Azura Saint Palace, who had the highest chance of breaking through to the martial god realm. But because she obtained this bow, she was accidentally killed by a shaman in the final battle. As for the other saint palaces, everyone who came into contact with this bow died in all sorts of accidents. All of them died in accidents? Could this bow be cursed by the shaman tribe? Yi Fei was secretly shocked. This bow was clearly not an ordinary monarch weapon. The stone puppet said, We also suspected this and specially invited the only martial god to examine it. But he didn't find any curse. In the end, we can only speculate that this bow is an inauspicious object. If it wasn't for the fact that it was the last thing our martial uncle left behind, we would have destroyed it long ago. Little Yi, you'd better choose another one. When Xiao Qiao heard this, he hurriedly told Yi Fei that Xiao Qiao didn't want this bow anymore. Yi Fei understood that Xiao Chao was worried about him. But when he saw Xiao Chao crying, his heart ached. He had to figure out the relationship between this Bao and Xiao Chao. As for accidents, he didn't care about them at all. To others, this Bao is an inauspicious object. But don't forget, the most inauspicious ones are people abandoned by the heavens. No matter how strange this Bao is, it can't hurt me. Yi Fei directly threw the Bao into the beast mark space, and let Xiao Chao slowly study it. Perhaps he could find out the origin of this Bao. Little Yi, you're really good at courting death. The stone puppet was heartbroken, but he couldn't find the words to refute. But in the eyes of many ancient sects, people abandoned by the heavens are indeed the greatest inauspicious. Moreover, you'll be dealing with that thing in the Emperor's tomb soon. Perhaps you can take the opportunity to find out the origin of this green Bao. Seeing that Yi Fei had made up his mind, the stone puppet didn't try to dissuade him. It was only later that Yi Fei found out that this was a tradition of the Azura Saint Palace. The disciples that came from the Azura Saint Palace were all too strong. They were like wild horses that had broken free of their reins, difficult to control. Therefore, the martial god of the Azura Saint Palace came up with a strange idea. That was to let them do as they pleased. As long as they didn't betray the Saint Palace, they could do whatever they wanted. For example, when Yi Fei chose the green Bao, if it were the demonic Saint Palace, the guardian elder would definitely try his best to dissuade him. And if he couldn't persuade him, he would directly beat him into submission. But the Azura Saint Palace was different. Even if he felt that something was wrong, the moment he saw that Yi Fei had made up his mind, the stone puppet immediately let him do as he pleased, taking responsibility for his own death. It was so straightforward that even Yi Fei couldn't help but feel a little depressed. After choosing the treasure, it wasn't good for him to stay here for long. He could only follow the stone puppet out of the Azura Saint Palace. Then, he saw two slim and graceful girls walking over from afar, laughing and chatting. "Brother!" Seeing Yi Fei come out, Yi Shanshan's eyes reddened as she sprinted over from afar. She threw herself into Yi Fei's embrace and started bawling. "Brother, I missed you," Yi Shanshan said in a sweet voice. "I missed you too." Looking at Yi Shanshan, who had obviously grown taller, Yi Fei couldn't help but blush with shame. Indeed, he had been so busy cultivating in the central continent that he had neglected his sister's feelings. But seeing that Yi Shanshan had broken through to the 7th level of the martial saint realm in less than 10 years, he was still very happy in his heart. Especially when Yi Shanshan had broken through to the 7th level of the martial saint realm. Yi Fei was even happier. At the same time, he couldn't help but ridicule the stone puppet. "Look at how well the Saint Palace has taken care of my sister. They even specially gave her guidance on the martial Dao. But when I joined the Azura Saint Palace, other than receiving a war god Dao, you didn't even say anything about my martial Dao." The stone puppet was embarrassed and angry and said righteously, "Kid, don't talk nonsense. What did I say at that time? I told you to stay here and cultivate for 10 years. In the end, you were the one in a hurry to leave. Moreover, our Azura Saint Palace's disciples are all geniuses. Geniuses should be left to their own devices. How can they be called geniuses if they are given guidance by others? Well then, why didn't you say that when you saw me in the central continent?" Yi Fei continued to interrogate. The stone puppet continued to speak eloquently. He pointed at Yi Shanshan and said, "Isn't it because I was too focused on protecting your little sister? In a moment of happiness, I accidentally forgot. Moreover, the disciples of our Azura Saint Palace have always been self-taught. I was just thinking highly of you." "Self-taught? Yi Fei, your Azura Saint Palace is really suffering." Zhao Xinian was dumbfounded. She suddenly felt lucky that she had joined the demonic Saint Palace. Even if the guardian elder was very strict, he still gave his all in guiding her. Chapter 1428. Fusion Domain. Too lazy to pay attention to the stone puppet's quibbles, Yi Fei and his sister Yi Shanshan, as well as the newly joined Zhao Xinian, found a quiet place and began to ask about their situation. Among them, the happiest was Yi Shanshan. Although it was very difficult to cultivate in the Six Paths Sacred Palace, but the female puppet of the Saint Palace took great care of her, asked about her well-being, and gave her pointers on cultivation. She also treated Yi Shanshan like her own daughter, and was usually reluctant to say a single harsh word to her. When Yi Shanshan mentioned the Saint Palace, she was full of happiness. Then Zhao Xinian also talked about her cultivation in the Demon Palace. She complained that the guardian elders were too strict, and if she did not learn well, they would put on a zombie face. Yi Fei, you don't know how abnormal Master Grandpa is. If you can't meet his requirements, then you have to keep cultivating. You are not even allowed to eat or sleep. You have to cultivate until there is no flaw. Touch me, see if I've lost a lot of weight. Yi Fei looked up and found that Zhao Xinian had lost a lot of weight compared to the last time he saw her, but her curves had become much softer and more beautiful. Unfortunately, although this master looked beautiful on the outside, she was a female bandit inside, and was the daughter of Zhao Qianjun. If he dared to touch her, Zhao Qianjun would immediately jump out and chop him up. Cough, cough, I am an upright person. Yi Fei had to emphasize this fact again. I think you have the heart of a thief, but don't have the guts. Zhao Xinian gave him a soul-stirring look at this time. That look made Yi Fei's heart thump fiercely, and he subconsciously had the urge to reach out his hand. But his reaction was very quick. As soon as he had this thought, he was jolted back to his senses. He looked at Zhao Xinian in surprise. What kind of martial arts are you using? It can actually shake my mind? This is the Heavenly Saint demonic technique, the secret technique of the Demon Palace. It's just that Sister Xinian has not used it since she mastered it, so she wanted to test its power with you, and see if you are honest or not. Yi Shanshan chuckled and explained. Only then did Yi Fei realize that the two girls had come to him with ill intentions. They had completely treated him as a material for cultivation. He thought to himself that it was a close call. If he had not suddenly remembered that Yi Shanshan was still beside him, he would have almost touched them. What nonsense, I have always been an honest person, this little trick is useless to me. Yi Fei pretended to be honest. He suddenly thought of something. He cast a puzzled glance at Zhao Xinian. Strange, you're already here. Where's senior brother Zhao? Why isn't he here yet? Father can't come, the guardian elder, he is Xinian, Zhao Xinian said. She originally wanted to follow, but the guardian elder thought that her strength was too low and would only be a hindrance, so she was forced to stay. She could be considered as a companion for Yi Shanshan. After all, before Zhao Xinian came, Yi Shanshan was alone. Living in the glory sect, it was inevitable that he would feel bored at times. Yi Fei's heart skipped a beat. Mission, that's right, this time the guardian elder is planning to deal with the magi locked in the emperor's tomb. Zhao Qianjun must have gone out to make preparations. It seems that I can't relax, I have to improve my strength as soon as possible. The guardian elder had clearly told him that this time he not only had a part to play in dealing with the magi, but also seemed to be the main force, so he had to take a greater risk. And the best way to face the risk was to improve his strength as much as possible. So after accompanying Yi Shanshan and Zhao Xinian for a few days in the glory sect, Yi Fei immediately ran back to the Azura Palace and began his closed-door training. This action naturally attracted the dissatisfaction of Zhao Xinian, who secretly muttered, Shanshan, your brother is a cultivation maniac, so unromantic, he may not be able to get a wife in the future. Isn't there Sister Xinian, we get along so well, why don't you be my sister-in-law? Yi Shanshan took the opportunity to set a trap, not forgetting to find a good sister-in-law for Yi Fei. Even though Zhao Xinian was a tomboy, her face was flushed red, and she pounced on Yi Shanshan, baring her fangs and brandishing her claws. "Okay, you're making fun of me, it just so happens that I'm lacking a wife, I've decided on you." The two people soon began to quarrel in the Glory sect. Obviously, the Guardian Elder had deliberately concealed the crisis that the Glory sect was about to face. Of course, it was useless to tell them. After all, the opponents this time were magi that even martial emperors would find difficult to defeat. Not only the Guardian Elder, but Yi Fei also knew that this was going to be a fierce battle. "Now I have 3 mortal domains, the Tai Chi domain, the Blood Demon domain, and the Ice domain that I obtained from the Black Prison." The first thing Yi Fei did after going into seclusion was to sort out his martial arts. Among them, the Tai Chi domain had not been fully formed, so Yi Fei could only temporarily keep it. He would try to perfect the Tai Chi domain in the future after mastering more profound meanings. Now the most powerful things he had were actually the Blood Demon domain and the Ice domain. These were not cultivated by him, but obtained by accident. They had become his strongest trump card. Among them, the Blood Demon domain had been completely integrated into the Heavenly Dragon's 8 poles, forming a part of the immemorial heavenly art. Yi Fei quickly decided to integrate the Ice domain into the Heavenly Dragon's 8 poles, and once again increase the power of this immemorial heavenly art. Integrating domains was a very dangerous process. Domains were the embryonic form of the world and contained an astonishing amount of energy. In particular, this Ice domain was a heaven-step domain that only a martial emperor could possess. Even so, the majority of its energy had been sealed away. In the end, the Guardian Elder's methods were not as brilliant as the Blood Demon's. During the process of integration, Yi Fei could clearly feel a powerful resistance coming from the Ice domain. This strength caused the entire Azura Saint Palace to turn into a world of ice and snow. The stone puppet could only stare helplessly on as the paint in its hand turned to ice. It couldn't help but curse inwardly and hurriedly slip out of the Azura Saint Palace. "Old brat, will this work? That is a heaven-step domain. Are you sure you can seal it away?" The stone puppet was worried. In this world, there is no such thing as absolute certainty. But this brat has a demon god entering his body and still hasn't died. If he also integrates another domain, there shouldn't be any problems. The Guardian Elder's tone was uncertain. Although he didn't want to admit it, he was still inferior to the Blood Demon. After all, while the Blood Demon could suppress the domain, he could also help Yi Fei smoothly integrate with it. As for the Guardian Elder, he could only suppress the domain and couldn't help Yi Fei integrate with it. Luckily, Yi Fei didn't know this. If he did, the Guardian Elder wouldn't have complete confidence and would simply throw the Ice domain to him to absorb. If that happened, Yi Fei would be so depressed that he would vomit blood. In the 6 Paths Saint sects, it was impossible to find a single normal person. Chapter 1429. Skin of the Great Witch. Within the frozen ice mountain, Yi Fei immersed himself in controlling the sky dragon golden body, gradually merging it with the frost domain. This was also the most dangerous process. An ownerless domain was like a bomb that could explode at any moment. If he made the slightest mistake, the domain would explode and Yi Fei would be left without a corpse. Fortunately, he knew about the 8 trigrams in advance. He also understood what kind of power the 8 trigrams represented. The 8 powers of the 8 trigrams are wind and thunder, mountain and lake, water and fire, and heaven and earth. The frost domain is of the water attribute. Now all I need to do is to let the frost domain evolve into the symbol of water and I will have succeeded. Yi Fei felt that this was like cheating in a test. No matter how difficult the question was, as long as the answer was in his hand, he did not want to understand the question. He would just copy the answer and get full mark. Therefore, the branding of the symbol was the most dangerous step in the Blood Demon's eyes. But in Yi Fei's eyes, it was the safest step. He did not need to worry about it at all. The sky dragon he controlled had already completely merged with the frost domain. The sky dragon that had merged with the frost domain suddenly turned into a terrifying ice dragon. The whistling cold air was enough to freeze and shatter one's soul. But before the sky dragon could fully unleash its power, Yi Fei had already pressed the water symbol that he had condensed in advance. The uncontrollable ice dragon suddenly calmed down. With the activation of the primordial heavenly art, it gradually merged with Yi Fei. Domain, appear. With a thought, a blurry world of blood and a blurry world of ice appeared behind him. At the same time, a blurry world of black and white appeared. The blood demon domain, the frost domain, and the unformed Tai Chi domain. This was Yi Fei's current strongest battle power. I don't know if I can fight a natural saint like Di Fan. A strong fighting spirit flashed in Yi Fei's eyes. Then, he controlled the ice dragon and sucked in a breath of air. Suddenly, the frost that covered the entire Azura Saint Palace disappeared. Yi Fei's figure also appeared outside the Azura Saint Palace. He cupped his hands towards the Guardian Elder and said, "Many thanks to Elder for granting my wish." The Guardian Elder waved his hand calmly. "It's just a small matter. You don't have to worry about it." In fact, he was also secretly shocked. His hands behind his back trembled. In fact, even the Guardian Elder himself wasn't completely confident in fusing the domains. The stone puppet was also prepared to help at any time if something went wrong. In the end, before they could even make a move, Yi Fei had completely fused with his body. The stone puppet standing at the side had its mouth wide open in shock. Out of habit, it didn't brush the paint on its face and almost stuffed it into its mouth. What bad luck! Why is our Azura Saint Palace full of freaks? All of you are trash. At the mention of the Azura Saint Palace, the Guardian Elder was quite resentful, but in the end, dealing with the Magi was more important. Seeing that Yi Fei had successfully fused with his domain and his strength had greatly improved, he immediately threw something to Yi Fei in a serious manner. Human skin? Yi Fei received it and shook it open. He discovered that it was actually a strange piece of human skin, but it didn't look like it. This skin shined brightly, as if it were made of gold. If it weren't for the fact that he could clearly sense the bloody aura coming from it, he wouldn't have been able to tell that this skin was actually real. This is the skin of a great magus. It was personally taken by the palace master of my demonic Saint Palace after he killed a great magus. If you wear it on your body, the magus in the Emperor's tomb won't be able to kill you. The Guardian Elder said. Old brat, are you sure? Don't tell me you're not confident and are deliberately trying to trick him? The stone puppet interrupted. Yi Fei also looked at the Guardian Elder suspiciously. He felt that something was wrong, but he was such a shrewd and honest person. If the Guardian Elder wanted to trick him, how come he couldn't sense it? This old man is a good person. The Guardian Elder had no choice but to emphasize again. But after a moment of silence, his tone was firm. Back then, I relied on this magus skin to avoid a fatal blow from the magus. I was injured but didn't die. Since it was useful to me, it must be useful to Yi Fei as well. Injured but didn't die. Doesn't that mean that I'm wearing the magus skin? I might still be injured, or even seriously injured. Yi Fei thought of the Guardian Elder's body that was still sealed in the crystal. He began to suspect that the Guardian Elder's emphasis on being a good person might be sarcastic. After all, this person was from the demonic Saint Palace. Why do I feel like I've boarded a pirate ship? Yi Fei held the magus skin with a conflicted expression. If you don't want it, then return it. This old man is lacking a treasure that can defend against magus spells. The Guardian Elder said angrily. Yi Fei didn't say anything else and put the magus skin on his body. The magus skin seemed to be alive. It turned into a layer of golden light and stuck to his body. It was as if he had an extra layer of golden skin. The magus methods are indeed strange. Yi Fei looked at his golden skin curiously. The Guardian Elder said coldly, Although witchcraft is powerful, the truly powerful martial arts are not inferior to witchcraft. Witchcraft is focused on its strangeness, making it impossible to guard against. A name, a strand of hair, can become a witchcraft's method of killing. In the future, if you encounter a magus, you must be careful. Either you don't offend them or you kill them when you meet them. Yi Fei was more and more certain that the guardian elder was definitely not a good person. He asked about Yi Shanshan and Zhao Shenian's situation. After learning that they had been arranged to enter the Saint Palace to cultivate in isolation, Yi Fei was relieved. After all, dealing with the magus this time was extremely dangerous. He didn't want his sister to worry. Zhao Qianjun probably had the same idea, which was why he didn't tell Zhao Shenian about the magus. Yi Fei asked the guardian elder a few more questions. The stone puppet stood at the side. It had used paint to redraw a more complicated domain gate. This domain gate led to the endless void. Yi boy, come with me. Old boy, get ready. Once the stone door opens, you will attack and kill that thing inside. The stone puppet's tone carried a rare hint of killing intent. Then what do I have to do? Don't tell me I have to participate in the battle? Yi Fei was a little worried. After all, that was an existence comparable to a martial emperor. After the incident with Blood Demon, he deeply understood that those who could live for 10,000 years without dying were all old monsters. They were definitely not easy to deal with. Haha, don't worry. You don't have to fight. You are only responsible for entering the desert and then entering the Emperor's tomb. At that time, what will the magus ask of you? You just have to agree to something, win his trust, spy on the sorcerer tribe, and then your mission will be completed. Leave the rest to me, the stone puppet said with a chuckle. It was unknown whether he was optimistic by nature or just a fool. But when he heard that he didn't have to fight, Yi Fei breathed a sigh of relief. Then, the two of them passed through the domain gate and returned to the walls of Quicksand City. However, the entire Quicksand City had become an empty city. All the people inside had disappeared. Only Zhao Qianjun and an old figure with a face full of wind and sand were waiting there. Senior brother Zhao. Yi Fei nodded to the former, then looked at the old man and said, Senior, we meet again. This old man was the tomb keeper of the Emperor's tomb. At present, he was the only omnipotent great sage in the northern region. When he saw that Yi Fei had grown from a little kid to a demi-emperor expert in less than 10 years, the tomb keeper was very emotional. I didn't misjudge you back then. You are very good. The future of the northern region depends on you. Chapter 1430. Great Dream Spell, What Should I Do Now? After thanking Zhao Qianjun for his concern, Yi Fei's gaze landed on the tomb keeper. He knew that the tomb keeper and the 6 sacred sects had joined forces to set up everything to deal with the shaman. You don't have to do anything. As long as you walk into the desert, the shaman will sense your aura and cast a spell on you. You don't have to resist and let him cast his spell. However, you must not expose yourself. You already know about him in advance. You just have to think of a way to get information from him and leave the rest to us. A strong sense of confidence emerged from the tomb keeper. This confidence made Yi Fei secretly suspicious. In this battle between martial emperors, what could a mere martial saint tomb keeper do? However, he did not ask further. In this battle, he only had one use, and that was to be a pawn. A pawn to lure the shaman into a trap. As long as he did this well, it would be fine. Senior brother Zhao, Senior, I'm going. If anything happens to me, please help me take care of my sister and family Yi. Although Yi Fei had the great shaman's skin on his body, he was still a little worried. He told them what he thought he should tell them before he mustered up his courage and walked into the desert. This time, he still rode on the sand boat. The huge desert warship carried him slowly and steadily towards the Emperor's tomb. Along the way, he did not see anyone, whether it was the bandits or the treasure hunters who had entered the desert to dig for stones. Even the most common sandworms seemed to have disappeared without a trace. The desert was dead silent. This silence brought with it an extremely oppressive atmosphere. Yi Fei secretly became a little nervous. At this moment, a cold voice sounded in his ears. "You're finally here. Who are you?" Yi Fei was shocked. He remembered that not long after he entered the desert, a cold voice suddenly sounded in his ears. What was even stranger was that when he spoke, he subconsciously looked at the surrounding environment and was surprised to find that this was no longer a desert, but a strange space that was dark and deep. If he hadn't known about the sorcerer's strange methods, this scene alone would have been enough to scare him half to death. Then, Yi Fei immediately looked into the beast mark space, but he saw nothing on his shoulder. There was no Xiao Chow or dragon turtle. He was slightly stunned. His line of sight suddenly passed through his own body, and his consciousness also floated out of that pitch-black space. In front of his eyes, a vast dry and hot desert appeared once again. In the desert, a huge sand boat was moving forward aimlessly. In front of the sand boat stood a young man in a black robe of purple and gold. "That's my body." My body was left on the sand boat, and my consciousness was pulled into that strange space by that magus without anyone noticing. Yi Fei's scalp went numb. He didn't know what kind of effects this separation of his consciousness and body would have, but his subconscious was telling him that he had to return as soon as possible. His consciousness began to float downwards, wanting to return to the sand boat, but in front of his eyes, the desert suddenly disappeared, and so did the sand boat. Faintly, before he landed on the sand boat, he heard his body snoring in deep sleep. "I actually fell asleep while standing on the sand boat?" Yi Fei found it unbelievable. This time, he didn't panic. Instead, he looked at the pitch-black space and asked cautiously, "Who are you? What sorcery is this?" "Sorcery? What a fool! If not for the fact that you were abandoned by the heavens, I would have refined you into the ugliest corpse puppet for insulting the sorcery." The pitch-black space gradually brightened. Only then did Yi Fei see that in this endless darkness, there was a figure sitting cross-legged. Half of his body had already rotted away, emitting a rotting aura. The other half of his body was emitting a weak silver light. This light became brighter and brighter. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that the silver was not light, but the original color of this figure. A silver-skinned person? Yi Fei pretended not to know. His face also revealed a trace of confusion. "Your voice is very familiar. Let me see the light of day again. I bestow eternal glory upon thee." The silver figure's tone became ancient and dignified, as if he was chanting in a sacrificial ritual. Yi Fei's expression immediately flashed with a trace of shock. He looked at the half-crippled silver figure. "It's you. You are the figure behind the stone door of the Thearcha's tomb. How did you come out? Also, what is a sorcery?" Feeling Yi Fei's shock from the bottom of his heart, the silver figure smiled in satisfaction. His tone was proud and fanatical. "Sorcery is the strongest power in the world. It surpasses gods and demons, surpasses sorcery, and naturally surpasses the martial arts of you humans. For example, what I am using now is the dream of a sorcery. Once I cast it, as long as I remember your aura, I can pull you into my dream at any time. I can even kill you in your dream." In order to deepen Yi Fei's impression of the power of sorcery, the silver figure opened his hand again. A seed appeared in his hand. Sorcery is supreme. Sorcery can change everything. For example, this seed. My sorcery can make it grow rapidly without any nourishment. The seed in the silver figure's hand trembled slightly. Without any nourishment from spiritual energy, the seed quickly took root, sprouted, bloomed, and bore fruit. This was not the end. The silver figure's hand swiped, and a strange symbol quickly appeared on the blooming flower. In Yi Fei's eyes, the most ordinary flower actually grew a bloody mouth. It turned from an ordinary flower into a ferocious man-eating flower. This is the power of sorcery. We sorcerers are the strongest creators in the world. Sorcerers are omnipotent, immortal, and have the same lifespan as the heavens and the earth, and shine with the sun and the moon. This is sorcery and also the highest level of sorcerers. The silver figure withdrew his hand, and the man-eating flower turned back into an ordinary flower. In the end, it turned back into the most ordinary seed. It was as if the scene just now was an illusion. However, Yi Fei clearly sensed that it was not as simple as an illusion. Other than being shocked by sorcery, he was also curious about sorcery. However, in order to obtain more information from this sorcerer, he deliberately sneered disdainfully and said, "Everyone knows how to brag. Your methods are very strange. You can actually pull me into your dream forcefully. Since this is your dream, you have the final say in what you want to create. You still don't understand. That's right. In the human race, you are the most insignificant ant. You have no right to know the power of sorcery and the greatness of sorcery." The silver figure shook his head. He did not speak again, and the surroundings turned dark again. On the sandboat, Yi Fei's standing body suddenly fell. He had been awakened from his dream, and he could feel his body again. However, before he could carefully recall what had just happened. Chapter 1431. Come and kill me. Yi Fei's consciousness was once again pulled into the dreamland. However, he was no longer as afraid as before. It's just a dream. What can you do to me? Pooh. A silver light flew over and pierced his arm. A sharp pain came from his arm, and he woke up from his deep slumber. After waking up, Yi Fei was shocked to find that there was a bloody hole in his arm. The Grand Shaman's hide that the guardian elder had given him had no effect at all. That old bastard still said that he was a good person. Yi Fei's face darkened. It was as if he could see 100,000 vicious beasts running past him. However, before he could react, another strange force forcefully pulled him into the dreamland. Yi Fei was speechless at the strangeness of Magi. Don't come. You just want to tell me that you can kill people in the dream. Then force me to help you escape from the Emperor's tomb. If there's anything, let's talk it out. I can be persuaded by reason, but not cowed by force. Pooh. The silver figure still didn't speak. He once again shot out a silver light, piercing a finger hole in Yi Fei's body. It was bloody and extremely terrifying. The pain caused Yi Fei's face to twist, but he was cursing in his heart. That old bastard guardian elder, you still say that our Azura Saint Palace is worthless. I think the demonic Saint Palace is the most worthless. You said that the Grand Shaman's hide could block Magi, but it can't even block a strand of hair. Yi Fei was really angry. He even had the thought of going back and fighting the guardian elder. He had killed his way back from the central province, and had never suffered such a loss. The silver figure didn't speak. Seeing that Yi Fei wasn't willing to speak, 3 more silver lights pierced his body. Yi Fei still didn't speak. He could only stare coldly at the silver figure. He knew that the silver figure wanted to use this torture to force him to speak and make him submit. Unfortunately, the silver figure had underestimated him. He was tough in every aspect, especially his bones. You want me to beg for mercy? No way. If you have the guts, then kill me. If you don't have the guts, then talk to me nicely. I'm not the one begging you, but you begging me. Pooh. Puff, puff. These words undoubtedly enraged the silver figure. His originally careless fingers suddenly became fast and ruthless. More than 10 rays of silver light pierced Yi Fei's most painful spots. Yi Fei could only grit his teeth and stare coldly at the silver figure. Knowing that he was no match for a magus who had come prepared in his dream, Yi Fei could not be bothered to dodge. he allowed the silver rays to pierce his body. Anyway, I've been struck by the heavenly tribulation countless times. So what if it hurts a little? I'm almost numb. Yi Fei continued to stand upright like a broken but sturdy sword. He stared coldly at the silver figure. How dare you? The silver figure couldn't stand Yi Fei's equal gaze. His goal was simple. He wanted to make Yi Fei feel fear, submit, beg for mercy, and then swear to be his witch slave. However, Yi Fei's insane willpower and his shocking tolerance for pain made the silver figure secretly shocked. He didn't expect Yi Fei to be so tenacious and unafraid of death. Finally, the silver figure thought of an even more vicious method. He didn't just stab Yi Fei's body anymore. Instead, he brazenly pierced 2 fingers towards Yi Fei's eyes. He had to make Yi Fei feel fear. As long as Yi Fei felt the slightest bit of fear, he would be able to better control Yi Fei through his Magus spell. Seeing the 2 rays of silver light piercing towards him, Yi Fei was indeed shocked, but it was far from fear. I'm not scared. That old guardian elder said that this Magus hasn't completely broken the seal. Other than me, he won't be able to find a second target to cast his spell on. If he kills me, he will lose all hope of escaping. Since that's the case, then I'll give it my all. In any case, he didn't have any means to resist Magus spells. Since that was the case, he might as well take advantage of the fact that he still had a trump card in hand and have a showdown with this Magus. If you dare to attack me again, I'll swear a heavenly blood oath that I'd rather die than save you. I'll agree to any of your requests. Yi Fei's expression was cold. He suddenly took a step forward and took the initiative to lean forward, allowing the silver figure to torture him. Come and kill me. Do it if you have the guts. Could it be that you're a lunatic? The silver figure was a little frightened. He didn't speak and only continued to torture Yi Fei. He wanted to intimidate Yi Fei and destroy Yi Fei's spirit so that he could use Yi Fei to cast stronger Magus spells. Yi Fei was actually scared to death. However, he knew very well that he was very likely the Magus' only hope of escaping. Otherwise, this Magus would have killed him in his dreams long ago. How could he torture him without saying a word? Having thought this through, Yi Fei of course wasn't afraid anymore. He even mustered up his courage and tested the Magus' attitude. In turn, he threatened the Magus. Come and kill me quickly. Seeing that the silver figure had stopped, Yi Fei felt even more confident. He took another step forward, impatient and eager to die. The silver figure was even more hesitant. It was obvious that this was the first time he had encountered such a troublemaker like Yi Fei. Yi Fei wasn't afraid of threats. However, if he didn't threaten him, how could a mere human be so disrespectful to him? Are you really not afraid of death? The silver figure's tone suddenly turned cold. That kind of coldness made Yi Fei feel as if his soul was about to be frozen. He quickly adjusted his attitude. After all, this was a silver-skinned Magus who was comparable to a martial emperor. If he didn't have some ability, the guardian elder wouldn't have let him in as bait. Of course I'm afraid of death. However, I also know that fear alone is useless. If you wanted to kill me, you would have done so long ago. Why do you have to go through so much trouble? Seeing that the Magus had no intention of continuing to attack, Yi Fei simply walked up to the silver figure and sat down cross-legged, adopting a negotiating posture. The silver figure's brows couldn't help but twitch. However, he didn't stop Yi Fei's actions, which was rare. After all, he had been trapped here for almost 10,000 years and was heavily injured. Even if he was a powerful Magus, there was a risk that he would die if this dragged on. This was also the reason why he had immediately activated a Magus spell and transmitted a message to Yi Fei when he first discovered Yi Fei in the Emperor's tomb. However, Yi Fei had left too quickly and the seal of the tomb was still very strong. Hence, he couldn't quickly prepare a Magus spell to deal with Yi Fei. However, it was different this time. He was fully prepared and only needed to wait for Yi Fei to take the bait. Then, he could use Yi Fei to escape the tomb and obtain freedom. You're not bad. Your willpower is stronger than I expected. I specially set up this test and it has stumped countless people. In the end, they all failed. I admire your willpower. Are you willing to follow me and learn Mega's spells? The silver figure's tone was no longer cold. Instead, there was a hint of admiration in it. Even his earlier torture had become a test of Yi Fei's willpower. Chapter 1432. Ancestral Witch Oath. Although Yi Fei despised the Magi for distorting the truth, his purpose in coming here this time was to gather information about the Magi. In order to gather information, he had to first gain the trust of the silver figure to prevent him from lying and deceiving him. Yi Fei could only try his best to act like an honest person. He nodded in realization and said, "Senior, you were testing me just now, but your methods were too cruel. I almost couldn't endure it. Senior, since it's a test and I'm injured, the medical fees." "Shut up." The silver figure's mouth twitched. It was one thing for this human to act recklessly, but he even dared to ask for compensation. He even had the urge to kill Yi Fei with a spell. But when he thought about how he still needed Yi Fei to help him escape from the Emperor's tomb, the silver figure suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, "You passed the test, which means that you are fated with the witch tribe. I have already decided to take you as my disciple. Is this not compensation?" "It's not," Yi Fei said confidently and pointed at the wounds all over his body. "Even if it's a test, my injuries are too terrible. You want to teach me witchcraft because you still want me to save you. But you have to take responsibility for my injuries. Otherwise, we will break up." He did as he said. Yi Fei patted his butt and stood up. He turned around and prepared to leave. This negotiation was a business deal. This sorcerer had tortured him so badly just now. Even if he couldn't defeat him, he had to viciously disgust this sorcerer and vent his anger. "It's not my style to be at a disadvantage," Yi Fei thought to himself with a cold smile. The silver figure's eyes darkened and he shouted angrily, "Stop right there. Do you think you can come and go as you please in front of me? What? If you want to kill me, then kill me. If I frown or cry out in pain, it's my loss." Yi Fei turned around coldly. Even though the guardian elder had asked him to follow the silver figure's instructions to obtain information, Yi Fei did not intend to give in to this witch. From the way the Magi had tortured him, he could tell that the Magi were a cruel race. When dealing with such a race, being weak would only lead to greater bullying. Sure enough, when the silver figure saw Yi Fei acting like a troublemaker and actively seeking death, he was so angry that his heart trembled. However, he did not dare to really kill Yi Fei. "Very good. Seems like you've made up your mind. I have to rely on you in order to leave this Emperor's tomb. Aren't you afraid that I'll continue torturing you with my shaman arts after we leave?" The silver figure stood up. Although only half of his body was intact, the aura he emitted was still like a mountain, full of oppression and majesty. If it had been an ordinary warrior, just this aura alone would have been enough to cause their mind to waver and allow themselves to be manipulated by the warlock. However, Yi Fei was different. After the battle of wits and courage with the blood demon, he was already familiar with the aura of a martial emperor. Most importantly, from the warlock's attitude, he was certain that the warlock would not dare to kill him. This was where his confidence came from. In the face of the warlock's threat, Yi Fei coldly warned, "Aren't you afraid that I'll do something when you leave? How dare you?" The silver figure was full of murderous intent. "Let's see if I dare or not." Yi Fei also scowled coldly. Just like that, the two of them stared at each other. Finally, the silver figure's murderous intent disappeared. He said coldly, "Sit down and talk. As long as you help me escape, I will definitely not harm you. I will even take you as my disciple. I'll do what I say. Compensate me for my medicine first, then we'll talk about saving you. Remember, you're the one who's begging me now. Yi Fei patted the non-existent dust off his clothes and sat down again. The silver figure's face stiffened. Then, he squeezed out a smile. He took out a blank scroll from the void and placed it in the middle of the room. I can give you benefits, but you humans have always been cunning. Words are no guarantee. Do you dare to sign the witch's oath with me? What's the witch's oath? Yi Fei asked curiously. The silver figure said, That's the highest oath we warlocks can make. Once it's made, we can't go back on it. If we violate it, we'll immediately be turned into ashes and consigned to eternal damnation. It's that serious? Yi Fei was secretly shocked. He understood that the witch's oath was similar to the heavenly blood oath. Once it was made, it was very difficult to go back on it. It seems that this warlock is also afraid that I'll do something when I save him. However, if I want to get information from the witch tribe, I have to gain this fellow's trust. Thinking of this, Yi Fei decided to take a risk. He nodded and said, We can make an oath, but I want to know the contents of the oath. Also, it has to be written in our human language. Yi Fei's attitude was very firm. Damn you, treacherous human. The silver figure was extremely angry. He originally wanted to use the witch tribe's language to trick Yi Fei. However, he didn't expect Yi Fei to be so smart and take precautions in advance. Knowing that it was impossible to tamper with the words, the silver figure was very carefree. He directly bit his finger and dripped a drop of silver blood. The blood quickly turned into a pile of distorted words following his incantation and appeared on the scroll. The first clause of the witch's oath is that once you help me escape from the Emperor's tomb, I'll take you in as my disciple. There's no problem with this, right? There's a problem. I'm a warrior and a human. Can I really learn witch arts? Don't lie to me. Yi Fei took the opportunity to ask. The silver figure said in a cold tone, Any warlock who dares to lie in the witch's oath will definitely die a horrible death. Don't worry. Ordinary people can't learn witch art. However, you're a person abandoned by the heavens. You can definitely learn it. A person abandoned by the heavens can learn it? Why? Yi Fei was a little surprised. The silver figure's expression was cold and he didn't answer. He chanted the incantation and continued writing. The second clause is that if you become my disciple, you'll abandon your position as a human. From now on, you'll do everything for the benefit of the witch tribe. Can you abide by it? Wouldn't that make me a traitor? Yi Fei was secretly unhappy. However, he had heard from the guardian elder that the group of traitors from the Hall of Life and Death had signed a similar witch's oath. At the same time, the witch's oath was indeed the highest oath for warlocks. It had an absolute binding effect on those below the Grand Warlock and Martial God realm. It also had a partial binding effect on those above the Martial God realm. The guardian elder had also told him that if the silver figure made such a request, he would agree to it. Yi Fei nodded and said in a deep voice, That's not a problem. However, I want to add one more condition. I can agree to become your disciple and learn witch arts from you. However, we have to sign an oath. You have to compensate me for my loss and answer all my questions. What do you want to ask? The silver figure's eyes were suddenly filled with vigilance and a little bit of suspicion. Yi Fei's expression didn't change. He said coldly, You want me to work for the witch tribe. I have to know if the witch tribe is worth it for me to work for it? Alright, you can ask questions. However, it's limited to 3 questions. The silver figure didn't give Yi Fei a chance to continue bargaining. The last of his blood coagulated on the scroll. The scroll represented the witch's oath. It suddenly emitted a deep black light. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.